Hello, hello. Here we go with day 3 out of 16. Yeah, for for reading Fourth Wing, guys. Give me one second. So today we will be reading chapters 13 through 18. Sorry. So yeah, today we will be reading chapters 13 through 18. We are meeting the dragons today. So yay! Like, officially meeting the dragons. Like, we have technically met them already when they did the, presentation, but we're officially getting to meet the dragons. Yay! This is the part of this book that I think dragon lovers prefer the most. But, yeah. So, let me get the book ready. Let's switch on over. Oh yeah. For those of you who do not know, or this is your first time coming to the stream for this event, I will be reading through the books of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame for now the next 7 weeks, including this weekend. There is one weekend in December I will be skipping because I have some prior engagements in real life that I need to take care of. So I will not be able to read, I think it's, let me double check real quick. It's the weekend of the 14th and the 15th of December. So that should be the, what, I think, second or third weekend of the month. It is the second weekend of the month, so I will be skipping the 14th and the 15th because I've got stuff I need to do in real life that is more important. I know that's weird to say, but yeah. So the 14th and the 15th we will be missing reading, but every other weekend up until January 21st, we will be reading at least 6 chapters a day. We're about a good ways in, almost a third way of the way into Fourth Wing. There are some bonus chapters in Fourth Wing. I was gonna read them along with the chapters that they are bonus chapters of, but there's some very spoilery stuff in those chapters that spoils the rest of the book, so I'm going to actually read those at the end whenever we get to the end of the book. So yeah. We will be reading all the way until January 21st when the 3rd book is released. I do plan on doing a personal read first of that book, and then when I happen to get to, or when I'm done actually reading it myself, if people want to, then I will read it, and just like how I'm doing here, and post it online. So yeah. And after all of this reading is done, I for sure will still keep streaming on Saturdays. It'll just actually be games then. Wait, I'll get myself a little bit more comfortable. So yeah, guys, at this moment, get yourself comfortable. I have turned off all channel point rewards. I have turned off Tangia and what was it, the viewer thing, whatever. So I will be able to do this, and also I did turn off cursor down here, so he will be on the screen, but you will not be able to get him or get the TTS to speak. But yeah, so everything should be turned off, and we should all be able to. Oh, wrong one. Get into this, shall we? Alright. Chapter 13. October 1st is always threshing. Monday, Wednesday, or Sunday, it doesn't matter where it falls on any given year. On the 1st of October, the first year cadets of the Writer's Quadrant enter the bowl-shaped forested valley to the southwest of the Citadel and pray they come out alive. I will not die today. I didn't bother eating this morning, and I pity Riddick, who's currently heaving up the contents of his stomach against a tree to my right. A sword is strapped to Rihanna's back, the hilt jostling against her spine as she bounces, stretching her arms against her chest one at a time. Remember to listen here, Professor Koiy says from in front of the 147 of us here, tapping his chest. If a dragon has already selected you, they'll be calling. He thumps his chest again. So pay attention to not just your surroundings, but your feelings, and go with them. He grimaces. And if your feelings are telling you to go in another direction, listen to that too. Which one are you going for? Rhiannon asks quietly. I don't know. I shake my head, but can't ditch the feeling of absolute failure in my chest. At this point, Mira knew she wanted to seek out Titan. You memorize the cards, right? She asks, slipping her brows. So you know what's out there? Yes, I just don't feel connected to any of them. Which is better than feeling connected to a dragon another writer has an eye on. I have no desire to fight to the death today. Dane tried talking me into a brown. Dane lost his vote when he tried talking you into leaving. She counters. There's a lot of truth to that. I've only talked to him once in the past 2 days since presentation, and he tried to get me to run within the first 5 minutes. We've only seen professors this morning, but I know the second and third year writers are scattered throughout the valley in order to observe. What about you? She grins. I'm thinking about that green. The one closest to me when they all got up and close and personal with you? Well, it didn't eat you, so that's a promising start. I smile, despite the fear racing through my veins. I think so too. She links her arms with mine, and I focus back on what Professor Koiy is telling us. If you go in groups, you're more likely to be incinerated than bonded, Professor Koiy argues with someone near the center of the valley. The scribes have run the statistics. You're better off on your own. And what if we aren't chosen by dinner? A man with a short beard to my left asks. Looking past him, I catch Jack Barlow running a finger across his neck at me. So original! Then Orin and Tynan flank his sides. So much for squad loyalty. It's everyone for themselves today. If you're not chosen by nightfall, there's a problem, Professor Koiy responds, his thick mustache turned down at the ends. You'll be brought out by a professor and senior leadership, so don't give up and think we've forgotten about you. He checks his pocket watch. Remember to spread out and use every foot of the valley to your advantage. It's 9, which means they should be flying in any minute now. The only other words I have for you are good luck. He nods, sweeping his gaze over the crowd of us with such intensity that I know he'll be able to recreate this moment in a projection. Then he leaves, marching up the hill to our right and disappears into the trees. My mind whirls. It's time. I'll either leave this forest as a rider, or likely never leave. Be careful, Rhiannon pulls me into a hug, her braids swinging over my shoulder as she tightens her arms around me. You too, I squeeze back, and am immediately swept into another pair of arms. Don't die, Riddick orders. That's our only goal as what's left of our squad separates, each heading in our own direction like we've been flung apart by centrifugal motion, at the mercy of a spinning wheel. Guessing by the position of the sun, it's been at least a couple of hours since the dragons flew overhead, landing in the valley in a succession that sounded like thunder and making the earth shake. I've come across 2 greens, a brown, 4 oranges, and my heart stumbles and my feet freeze to the forest floor as a red steps in my field of vision, its head just under the canopy of enormous trees. This is not my dragon. I'm not sure how I know, but I do. I hold my breath, trying not to make a sound as its head sweeps right then left, and my gaze plummets to the ground as I bow my head. For the last hour or so, I've seen dragons launch into the air when a cadet, now a rider, on their back, or with a cadet, now a rider, on their back. And I've also seen more than a couple of plumes of smoke, and I have no desire to be one of those. The dragon huffs a breath, then continues along its path, its club tail flicking upward and catching one of the lower hanging branches. The limb falls to the ground with a monstrous crash, and only after the footsteps recede do I finally raise my head. Bleh. I've now come across every color of dragon, and none of them have spoken to me or given me the sense of connection we're reportedly supposed to feel. My stomach sinks. What if I am one of the cadets who's destined to never become a rider? One who's thrown back time and time again to restart first year until eventually someone puts me on the death roll? Has this all been for nothing? The thought is too heavy to carry. Maybe if I could see the valley, then and I'd get a feeling like Professor Koiy was talking about. I spot the nearest climbable tree and get to work, scaling branch after branch. Pain radiates from my hands, and I don't let it distract me. The bark catches the wraps that still cover my palms. Now that's an annoyance that makes me pause every few feet to pull the cloth free from the bark. Pretty sure the higher branches aren't going to support my weight, so I stop about 3/4 to the top and survey the immediate area. There are a few greens in plain sight to my left, standing out against the fall foliage. Oddly enough, this is the one time a year when oranges, browns, and reds have the highest chance of blending in. I watch the trees for movement and spot a couple more direct south, and there's no pull, no aching need to head in that direction, which probably means those aren't mine either. Relief hits me embarrassingly hard when I count at least half a dozen first years wandering aimlessly. I shouldn't be so happy that they haven't found their dragon either, but at least I'm not the only one, which gives me hope. There's a clearing to the north, and my eyes narrow as a flash, like a mirror catches the sun, or like a golden dragon. Guess the little feathertail is still out here appeasing its curiosity, but I'm apparently not going to find my dragon up in a tree. So I climb down carefully and as quietly as possible. My feet hit the ground just before voices approach, and I tuck myself against the trunk to hide from being seen. We're not supposed to be in groups. I'm telling you, I think I saw it headed this way. It's a cocky voice I immediately recognize as Tynan. You'd better be right, because if we just hiked all the way the fuck over here to find nothing, I'm going to run you through. My stomach twists. It's Jack. No one else's voice has that physical effect on me, not even Zayden's. You sure we shouldn't be spreading our Spending our time looking for our own dragons instead of hunting the freak down. Recognition tickles the edges of my mind, but I lean out from the hiding spot just to be sure. Yep, it's Orin. I dart back behind the cover of the tree as the trio passes, each strapped with a deadly sword. There are 9 daggers tucked against my body in various places, so it's not like I'm unarmed, but I feel tragically disadvantaged by my inability to wield a sword effectively. They're just too damn heavy. Wait, what did they say they were doing? Hunting? It's not like our dragons are going to bond other riders, Jack snaps. They'll wait for us. It has to be done. That scrawny one is going to get someone killed. We have to take it out. Nausea swells my stomach, and my fingernails bite into my palms. They're going to try and kill the little golden one. If we get caught, we're fucked, Orin comments. That's an understatement. I can't imagine dragons would take kindly to killing one of their own. But they seem to be focused on culling the weak from their herd in our species, so it's not a stretch to imagine they do the same with their own. Then you'd better shut your mouth so no one hears us, Tynan counters, his voice ringing in that mocking tone that makes me want to punch him in the face. It's for the best, Jack argues, his tone dropping. It's unrideable, a certified freak, and you know Feathertails are useless in combat. They refuse to fight. His voice fades as they walk further away, headed north, towards the clearing. Shit, I muttered under my breath. Even though the assholes are out of hearing range by now, no one knows anything about Feathertails, so I don't know where Jack is getting his information. But I don't have time to focus on his assumptions right now. I have no way of contacting Professor Koiy, and there hasn't even been a hint that the senior writers are watching us, so I can't count on them to stop this madness either. The Golden Dragon should be able to breathe fire, but what if it can't? There's a chance they won't find it, but shit, I can't even convince myself of that one. They're heading the right way, and that dragon is pretty much a shiny beacon. They'll find it. My shoulders sag as I sigh at the sky, and blowing out a frustrated breath. I can't just stand here and do nothing. You can get there first and warn it. Solid plan. But way better than option 2, where I'd be forced to take on 3 armed men with at least a combined 200 pounds on me. I keep my footsteps silent and race across the forest floor at a silently different angle than Jack's little posse. Thankfully, I grew up playing hide-and-seek with Dane in the woods. This is one area of expertise I can confidently claim. They've got a head start on me, and the clearing is closer than I realized. So I kick up my speed and my gaze darting between the leaf-covered path I've chosen and where where I know they are, towards the left. I can make out their lumbering shapes in the distance. I hear a pop, and the ground falls out from under me, then rushes for my face. My hands fly out to brace myself a second before I slam into the forest floor. I bite into my lower lip and keep from crying out as my ankle screams. Popping isn't good. It's never good. Glancing back, I curse at the fallen branch hidden by fall foliage that's just wrecked my ankle. Shit. Block the pain. Block it. There's no mental trick to keep the shooting agony from turning my stomach as I drag myself to my knees and rise carefully, keeping my weight on my left ankle. There's nothing to do but limp the final dozen feet to the clearing, gritting my teeth the whole way. The tinge of satisfaction that I beat Jack here is almost enough to make me smile. The meadow is big enough for 10 dragons, ringed by several large trees, but the golden one stands alone in the center, like it's trying to get a suntan. It's just as beautiful as I remember, but unless it can breathe fire, it's a sitting duck. You have to get out of here, I hiss from the cover of the trees, knowing it should be able to hear me. They're going to kill you if you don't leave. Its head pivots towards me, then tilts at an angle and makes my own neck hurt. Yes, I whisper loudly. You, Goldie! It blinks its golden eyes and swishes its tail. You have to be fucking kidding me. Go! Run! Fly! I shoo at it, then remember, it's a goddamn dragon, capable of shredding me, but with its claws alone, and drop my hands. This is not going well. It's going the opposite of well. The trees rustle from the south, and Jack steps into the clearing, his sword swaying in his right hand. A step later, he's flanked by Orin and Tynan, both their weapons drawn. Shit, I mutter, my chest tightening. This is now officially going horribly. The golden dragon's head snaps in their direction, a low growl rumbling in its chest. We'll make it painless. Jack promises, like that makes the murder acceptable. Scorch them, I shout, my heart pounding as they draw closer, but the dragon doesn't, and somehow I'm certain in the marrow of my bones that it can't. Other than its teeth, it's defenseless against 3 trained warriors. It's going to die just because it's smaller, weaker than other dragons. Just like me, my throat closes. The dragon backs up, its growl growing louder as it bares its teeth. Stomach pinching, I have that parapet feeling again. Whatever I do next has overwhelming odds of ending my life. And yet, I'm still going to do it because this is wrong. You can't do this. I take my first step into the shin-high grass, and Jack's attention swings my way. My ankle has a heartbeat of its own, and agony streaks up my spine, chattering my teeth as I force my weight onto my ruined joint so they won't see me limping. They can't know I'm hurt, or they'll just attack faster. One at a time, I stand a chance of holding them off long enough for the dragon to escape, but together, don't think about it. Oh, look, Jack grins, pointing his sword my way. We can take out both the weakest links at the same time. He looks at his friends and laughs, pausing their advance. Each step hurts worse than the last, but I make it to the center of the clearing, putting myself between Jack's group and the golden dragon. Been waiting a long time for this, Sorengale. He walks forward slowly. If you can fly, now would be a good time, I shout over my shoulder at the small dragon, drawing 2 daggers from my sheaths and my ribs. The dragon chuffs, so helpful. You can't kill a dragon, I try reasoning, shaking my head at the trio, fear lacing my veins with adrenaline. Sure we can, Jack shrugs, but Orin looks a little uncertain. So I pin my gaze on him, and then they spread out slightly about a dozen feet away, setting up the perfect formation for an attack. You can't, I say directly to Orin. It goes against everything we believe in. He flinches. Jack doesn't. Letting something so weak, so incapable of fighting, live is against our beliefs, Jack shouts, and I know he's not just talking about the dragon. You're going to have to get through me, then. My heart thunders against my ribs as I raise my daggers, flipping one to pinch the tip so I'm ready to throw, and measuring the 20 or so feet separating me from my attackers. I don't really consider that a problem, Jack snarls. They all lift their swords, and I draw a deep breath, readying myself to fight. This isn't the match. There are no instructors, no yielding, nothing to stop them from slaughtering us. I would strongly recommend you rethink your actions, his voice, demands from across the field to my right. My scalp prickles as each of our heads swivel in his direction. Xaden is leaning against a tree, his arms folded against his chest, and behind him, watching with narrow golden eyes, her fangs exposed, is Sigale, his terrifying navy blue dagger tail. Okay. That is... Ooh, let me put my... I finally got a bookmark. Let me put my bookmark in there. Alright guys, we will be back in a few minutes to continue with chapter 14. Alright. We're back. Alright. Time. Sorry that took about 10 minutes-ish. No. But let's start with chapter 14. Chapter 14. Xaden. For the first time, the sight of him fills my chest with hope. He won't let this happen. He might hate me, but he's a wing leader. He can't just watch them kill a dragon. But I know the rules properly better than anyone else in this quadrant. He has to. Bile rises in my throat, and I tilt my chin to quell the burning. What Xaden wants, which is always debatable, doesn't matter here. He can only observe, not interfere. I'm going to have an audience for my death. Fantastic. And so much for hope. And if we don't want to rethink our actions, Jack shouts. Xaden looks towards me, and I swear I can see his jaw clench, even from this far away. Hope is a fickle, dangerous thing. It steals your focus and aims it towards the possibilities instead of keeping it where it belongs. On the probabilities. Xaden's words come back to me with alarming clarity, and I rip my gaze from his and concentrate on 3 probabilities in front of me. There's nothing you can do, right, wing leader? Jack bellows. Guess he knows the rules too. It's not me you should worry about today, Xaden responds, and Sigale tilts her head, nothing but menace in her eyes. But when I glance over, you really going to do this? I asked Tynan. Attack a squad mate? Squads don't mean shit today, he seethes, menace curling his lips into a sinister smile. So I guess that's a no on the flying. I toss over my shoulder again, and the golden dragon chuffs low in its throat and respond. Great! Well, if you can back me up with those claws, I'd really appreciate it. It chuffs twice, and I spare a glance down at its claws. Or should I say, paws. Oh, fucking hell. You don't have any claws? I turn back to the 3 men just as Jack roars a battle cry and sprints towards me. I don't hesitate. I whip my blade across the rapidly closing space between us, and the dagger finds its mark in the shoulder of his sword arm. His sword falls as he hits his knees, crying out, this time in pain. Good. But Orin and Tynan have charged at the same time, and they're almost on me. I fling my second dagger at Tynan and catch him in the thigh, slowing but not stopping him. Orin swings for my neck, and I duck, unsheathing another blade, and slicing him along the ribs, just like I did during our challenge. My ankle isn't going to... Oh, sorry. Whew. My ankle isn't going to let me kick or even land a decent punch, so it's up to my blades. Whew, so sorry. I am gassy today. He recovers quickly and pivots with the sword, catching me at my stomach in a clean slice that would eviscerate me if not for Mira's armor. Instead, the blade skims the scales, sliding right off me. What the hell? Orin's eyes fly wide. She's destroyed my shoulder, Jack cries, stumbling to his feet and distracting the others. I can't move it. He clutches the joint, and I grin. That's the thing about having weak joints, I say, palming another blade. You know exactly where to strike. Kill her, Jack orders, still clutching his shoulder, as he backs away a few steps, then turns and runs in the opposite direction, disappearing into the tree line in no time. Fucking coward. Tynan jabs with his sword, and I spin away, white-hot pain stealing my sight for a heartbeat before I swipe backwards, plunging my dagger into his side, then pivoting, shoving my elbow up into Orin's chin, and he attacks, rattling his head. You fucking bitch! Tynan screams, pressing his palm against his oozing side. Such an original. I take advantage of Orin's dazed expression and slice open his hip. Insult. The move costs me, and a scream rips from my throat as Tynan's sword cuts into my upper right arm along the direction of the bone. The armor keeps it from penetrating my ribs, but I know I'll have a hell of a bruise tomorrow when I retch myself away, blood flowing freely as I peel myself off the sword. "Behind you!" Xaden shouts. I pivot to see Orin's sword held high, ready to separate my head from my shoulder, as the golden dragon snaps its jaw and Orin stumbles to the side with terror-filled eyes, as if he's just now realized that it has teeth. I sidestep and knock the handle of my blade against the base of his skull. He crumbles, unconscious, and I don't wait to see him fall before turning back toward Tynan, who has his bloodied sword ready. "You can't interfere," Tynan shouts at Xaden, but I don't dare look away from my opponent long enough to see how the wing leader reacts. "No, but I can narrate," Xaden retorts. He's obviously on my side here, which confuses the hell out of me, since more than anything, I'm certain he wants me dead. But maybe it's not my life he's protecting, but the golden dragon's. I chant a quick glance. Yeah, Sagail looks pissed. Her head undulates like in a serpentine motion, a clear sign of agitation. And those narrowed golden eyes of hers are focused on Tynan, who is now trying to circle me like we're on the mat. But I won't let him get between me and the little golden dragon. "Your arm is shot, Sorengale," Tynan hisses, his face pale and sweaty. "I'm used to functioning in pain, asshole. Are you?" I raise the dagger in my right hand just to prove that I can, despite the blood that runs down my arm and drips from the tip of my blade, saturating the wrap across my palm. My gaze drops meaningfully to the side. I know exactly where I sliced into you. If you don't get to a healer soon, you'll bleed out internally. Rage contorts his features as he moves to strike. I try to flick my knife at him, but it slips from my blood-soaked hand and lands with a thud in the grass several feet away. And I know my bravado won't be enough to save me now. My arm is shot. My leg is shot. But at least I made Jack Barlow run away before I died. As a last thought, that's not a bad one. Just as Tynan reaches up to two-hand his sword, preparing for a killing blow, I catch a glimpse of movement to my right. It's Xaden, and rules be damned, he stepped forward as though he intends to stop Tynan from killing me. I barely have a moment to register surprise that Xaden would ever save me, for any reason, when a gust of wind slams into my back, and I stumble forward onto my destroyed ankle, flinging my arms out to keep my balance, and grimacing at the shooting pain. Tynan's mouth hangs open, and he staggers backward, his head tilting so far back it's nearly perpendicular to his torso. Shade envelops us both as he continues to back away. Chest heaving, my lungs desperate for air, I chance a look over my shoulder to see why Tynan's retreating, and my heart lurches into my throat. Standing with the golden one tucked under an enormous, scarred black wing is the biggest dragon I've ever seen in my life. The unbonded black dragon Professor Koiy showed us in class. I don't even come close to reaching its ankle. A growl resonates through its chest, vibrating the ground around me as it lowers its gigantic head, bearing dripping teeth. Fear ripples through every cell in my body as its hot breath blows over me. "Step aside, Silver One," a deep, gruff, definitely male voice orders. I blink. Wait, what? Did he just speak to me? "Yes, you, move!" There's zero room for argument in his tone, and I limp to the side, nearly stumbling over Orin's unconscious body as Tynan breaks into a screaming run, fleeing for the trees. The black dragon's eyes narrow to glare at Tynan as he opens his mouth wide a second before fire shoots across the field, blasting heat against the side of my face and incinerating everything in its path, including Tynan. Flames crackle at the edges of the blackened path, and I turn slowly to face the dragon, wondering if I'm about to be next. His giant golden eyes study me, and I hold my ground, tilting my chin upward. You should end the enemy at your feet. My eyebrows jerk upward. His mouth didn't move. He spoke to me, but his mouth didn't move. Oh shit, because he's in my head. I can't kill an unconscious man, I shake my head, though whether it is in protest at his suggestion or a result of my confusion, it is up for debate. He would kill you if given the same chance. I glance down at Orin, still unconscious in the grass beside my feet. It's not like I can argue that astute assessment. Well, that's a statement on his character, not mine. The dragon only blinks in response, but I can't quite tell if it's a good thing or not. There's a flash of blue out of the corner of my eye, then a whoosh of air as Xaden and Sgale take off, leaving me here with the giant black dragon and the little golden one. Guess Xaden's momentary concern for my life is over. The dragon's giant nostrils flare. You're bleeding. Stop it. Sorry. My arm. It's not that simple when you have been run through with a... I shake my head. Am I seriously arguing with a dragon? This is so fucking surreal. You know what? That's a great idea. I managed to cut off what remains of my right shirt sleeve, and wrap it around the wound, holding one end of the fabric with my teeth, and tie it tight to apply pressure to slow the bleeding. There, better? It will do. He tilts his head at me. Your hands are bound too. Do you bleed often? I try not to. He scoffs. Let's go, Violet Sorengale. He lifts his head, and the golden dragon peeks out from under his wing. How do you know my name? I cock up at him. And to think, I'd almost forgotten just how loquacious humans are. Loquacious, sorry. And just to think, I almost forgot how loquacious humans are. He sighs, the gust of his breath rattling the trees. Get on my back. He's choosing me? Get on your back, I repeat like a fucking parrot. Have you seen you? Do you have any idea how huge you are? I'd need a damned ladder to get up there. The look he gives me can only be described as annoyance. One does not live a century without being well aware of the space one takes up. Now get on. I love this character. I love the Black Dragon so much. The Golden One moves out from under the shelter of the Big One's wing. It's tiny compared to the monstrosity before me, and apparently completely defenseless with the exception of those teeth, like a playful puppy. I can't just leave it, I say. What if Orin wakes up or Jack comes back? The Black Dragon chuffs. The Golden One bends down, flexing its legs, and then launches into the sky, its golden wings catching the sun as it flies off, skimming the top of the trees. So it can't fly. That would have been nice to know 20 minutes ago. Get on. The Black Dragon growls, shaking the ground and trees at the edge of the field. You don't want me, I argue. I'm not going to tell you again. Point taken. The fear grasps my throat like a fist, and I hobble over to its leg. This isn't like climbing a tree. There are no handholds, no easy path, just a series of hard as stone scales that don't exactly give me a foothold. My ankle and arms aren't doing me any favors either. How the hell am I going to get up there? I raise my left arm and suck in a breath before placing my hand on his front leg. The scales are larger and thicker in my hand and surprisingly warm to the touch. They are larger. They layer into the next above them, and an intricate pattern that leaves no space to grab hold. You are a rider, aren't you? That seems up for debate at the moment. My heart thunders. Is he going to cook me alive for being too slow? A low, frustrated grumble sounds in his chest, and then he shocks me to the core as he stretches forward, his front legs becoming a ramp. Dragons never supplicate for anyone. And yet, here he is, bowing to make it easier for me to climb up. It's steep, but manageable. I don't hesitate, crawling up his front legs on my hands and knees to balance my weight and spare my ankle. But the strain on my arm has me gasping by the time I climb over his shoulder and reach his back. Dodging the pointed spikes that ripple down most of his neck like a mane. Holy shit, I'm on the back of a dragon. Sit. I see the seat, the smooth, scaly divot just in front of his wings, and sit. Bending my knees like Professor Koiy taught us. Then I grab a hold of the thick, rigid ridges of scales we call the pommel, where his neck meets his shoulders. Everything about him is bigger than any model we practiced on. My body isn't built to stay on any dragon, let alone one of his size. There's no way I'll be able to stay seated. This is about to be the first and last ride of my life. My name is Ternanok, son of... Okay, I'm sorry, but I cannot pronounce any of these names. I'm surprised I remember Ternanok. My name is Ternanok, son of Murtkudim and... Oh my god, I hate this. Murtkudim. I don't know if I pronounced that properly. And be a clan fuel, descendant from the cunning Dub Madin line. I'm sorry to anybody yelling at me if I mispronounced any of the shit. He stands to his full height, bringing me eye level with the canopy of the trees around the clearing, and I squeeze a little tighter with my thighs. But I'm not going to assume that you'll be able to remember that once we reach the field. So Terran will do until I inevitably have to remind you. I inhale swiftly, but there's no time to process his name, his history, but before he bends slightly and launches us into the sky. It feels like I imagine a stone does after being flung from a catapult, except it takes every ounce of strength I have to stay in this particular stone. Holy shit! The ground falls away as we soar, Terran's enormous wings beating the air into submission and pitching upward. My body lifts off his back and I dig in with my hands, trying to keep anchored. But the wind, the angle, it's all too much, and my grip falters, my hands slip. Scrambling for purchase, bleh. My hands rake down Terran's back as I skid past his wings, rapidly approaching the sharp scales of his morning star tail. No, no, no! He banks left, and whatever hope I had of getting a handhold tumbles right off with me. I'm in free fall. Alright. So that is chapter 14. We are... Alright, we will be back in a little bit to continue with chapter 15. Woo-wee! Alright, see you guys back in a little bit. Alright, looks like we're getting through these chapters fast. I don't mean to, but, you know. It's great. I love books when chapters are very small. Alright, so we will be starting chapter 15. Alright. Get comfy, everyone. Chapter 15. Terror clogs my throat and stutters my heart. Air rushing past me as I plummet towards the mountainous terrain beneath, and the sun catches the scales of the golden one far beneath me. I'm going to die. That's the only possible outcome. Vices clamp around my ribs and over my shoulders, stopping my descent, and my body jerks with whiplash as I'm yanked upward again. You're making us look bad. Stop it. I'm clasped in Terran's claws. He actually caught me, instead of finding me unworthy and letting me fall to my death. It's not like it's easy to stay on your back when you're doing acrobatics, I shout up. He glances down at me, and I swear the ridge above his eye arches. Simple flight is hardly acrobatic. There is absolutely nothing simple about you. I wrap my arms around the knuckles of his claws, noting that his sharp talons are draped harmlessly around the sides of my body. He's huge, but he's also careful as he flies along the mountainside. He's one of the deadliest dragons in Navarre, Professor Koi's lesson. What else had he said? The only unbonded black dragon hadn't agreed to bond this year? He hadn't even been seen in the past 5 years. His rider died in the Tirish rebellion. Terran swings me upward and then releases me, sending me flying high above him, and I flail. My stomach drops at the highest of his toss, and then I fall for 2 heartbeats before Terran rushes up, catches me on his back, between his wings. Now get in the seat and actually hold on this time, or no one is going to believe that I actually chose you. He growls. I still can't believe you're choosing me. I have half a mind to tell him that getting back to the seat isn't as easy as he's implying. But he levels out, and his wings catch the air in a gentle glide, cutting the wind resistance. Inch by inch, I crawl up his back until I reach the seat and settle in again. I hold on to his ridges so hard my hands cramp. You're going to have to strengthen your legs. Didn't you practice? Indignation ripples up my spine. Of course I practiced. There's no need to shout. I can hear you fine. The entire mountain can probably hear you. Was everyone's dragon a curmudgeon, or just mine? My eyes widen. I have a dragon. And not just any dragon. I have Terranok. Grip harder with your knees. I can barely feel you back there. I'm trying. I push my knees in, and the muscle of my thighs tremble as he banks left, softer this time than last. His angle not quite as steep as he changes course in a wide arc, taking us back towards Benskayath. I'm just not as strong as other riders. I know exactly who and what you are, Violet Sorengale. My legs shake until they lock, the muscles freezing in place, as though bands have been wrapped around them. But there's no pain. I glance over my shoulder and see his Morningstar tail, what feels like miles behind us. He's doing this. He's holding me in place. Guilt settles in my stomach. I should have focused more on strength training for my legs. I should have spent more time preparing myself for this. He shouldn't have to spend his energy on keeping his rider seated. I'm sorry, I just didn't think I'd make it this far. A loud sigh resonates through my mind. I didn't think I would either. So, we have that in common. I sit higher in the seat and look out over the landscape, wind ripping tears from the corners of my eyes. No wonder most riders choose to wear goggles. There are at least a dozen dragons in the air, each putting their rider through a trial of dips and turns, reds, oranges, greens, browns, and the sky is speckled with color. Whew. Excuse me. My heart lurches as I see a rider fall from the back of a red sword tail, and unlike Terran, the dragon doesn't dip to catch the first year. I look away, before the body hits the ground. It's not anyone you know. That's what I tell myself. Rhiannon, Riddick, Trina, Sawyer, they're all probably safely bonded and already waiting in the field. We're going to have to put on a show. Awesome. The idea is anything but. You will not fall. I will not allow it. The bands around my legs extend to my hands, and I feel the pulse of invisible energy. You will trust me. Not a question, an order. Let's get it over with. I can't move my legs, my fingers, my hands, so there's nothing I can do but sit back and hope I enjoy whatever hell he's about to put me through. His wings give a mighty beat, and we lurch upward in what feels like a 90-degree climb, leaving my stomach back at the lower altitude. He crests the top of the snow-dusted peaks, and we hang there for a breath of a second before he twists, diving back down at the same terrifying angle. It's the most horrifying yet exhilarating moment of my life. Until he twists again, sending us into a spiral. My body is wrenched this way and that as he completes turn after turn, pulling us out of the dive only to bank so hard I swear the land becomes the sky. Then repeats it all until my face splits into a grin. There's nothing like this. I think we made our point. He pulls us level, then banks right, starting up the valley that leads to the box canyon on the training field. The sun is close to setting behind the peaks, and there's plenty of light to see the golden dragon up ahead, hovering as though it's waiting. Maybe it didn't choose a rider, but it will live to decide again next year. And that's all that matters. Or maybe it will see that we humans aren't so great after all. Why did you choose me? I have to know, because as soon as we land, there are going to be questions. Because you saved her. Terran's head inclines towards the golden as we approach, and she follows after us. Our speed slows. But, I shake my head, dragons value strength and cunning and ferocity in their riders. None of which defines me. Please, do tell me more about what I should value. Sarcasm drips from his tone as we pass over the gauntlet and crest the narrow entrance to the training field. Okay, sorry. Terran is one of my favorite characters in this book. I suck in a sharp breath at the sight of so many dragons. There are hundreds gathered along the rocky edges of the mountain slopes behind the bleachers that were erected overnight, spectators. At the bottom of the valley, in the same field I'd walked only a couple of days before, are two lines of dragons facing each other. They are divided between those still in the quadrant who chose in years past and those who chose today. Terran tells me we are the 71st bond to enter the field. Mom will be here on the dais in front of the bleachers, and maybe I'll get more than a cursory glance, but her attention will mostly be on the 70 or so newly bonded pairs. A ferocious roar of celebrating goes up amongst the dragons as we fly in, every head swinging our way, and I know it's indifference to Terran. So is the parting of the dragons at the very center of the field, making room for Terran to land. He releases the bands, holding me in my seat, then hovers over the grass for a few wing beats, and I see the golden dragon flying furiously to catch up. How ironic. Terran is the most celebrated dragon in the Vale, and I'm the most unlikely rider in the quadrant. You are the smartest of your year. The most cunning. I gulp at the compliment, brushing it off. I was trained as a scribe, not a rider. You defended the smallest with furiosity, and strength of courage is more important than physical strength, since you apparently need to know before we land. My throat tightens from his words, emotion forming a knot I have to swallow past. Oh, shit. I hadn't spoken those words. I thought them. He can read my thoughts. See? Smartest of your year. So much for privacy. You'll never be alone again. That sounds more like a threat than a comfort, I think. Of course I knew that dragons maintain a mental bond with their riders, but the extent of it is more than a little daunting. Terran scoffs in reply. The golden dragon reaches us, her wings beating twice as fast as Terran's, and we land in the dead center of the field. The impact jars me slightly, but I sit up tall in the seat and even let go of the pommel ridges. See? I can hang on just fine when you're not moving. Terran tucks his wings up and looks over his shoulder at me with an expression that's the closest thing to a dragon rolling his eyes that I've ever seen. You need to dismount before I rethink my selection. Then tell the roll keeper. I know what to do. I pull in a shaky breath. I just don't think I'd be alive to do it. Or I just didn't think I'd be alive to do it. Surveying both options for dismount, I move right to shelter my ankle as long as possible. There are no healers around in the flight field, only riders. But hopefully someone thought to pack a medical kit, because I'm going to need stitches and a splint. I scoot over the scales of Terran's shoulder, and before I can lament the distance, I am about to have to jump on the wreckage of my ankle. Terran shifts slightly, angling his front leg. There's a sound from the slopes that reminds me of muttering, if dragons mutter. They do, and they are. Ignore it. Again, there's no room for argument in his tone. Thanks, I whisper, then slide down on my butt like he's a bumpy piece of lethal playground equipment, taking the brunt of the impact with my left leg while I hit the ground. That's one way to do it. I can't stop the smile on my face or the joy that stings my eyes at the sight of other first years standing in front of their dragons. I'm alive, and I'm no longer cadet. I'm a rider. The first step hurts like hell, and I pivot toward the golden one, who is tucked in tight next to Terran, surveying me with bright eyes as she flicks her feather tail. I'm glad you made it. Glad isn't even the right word. Thrilled, relieved, grateful. But maybe you should fly off the next time someone suggests you save yourself, eh? She blinks. Maybe I was saving you. Her voice is higher, sweeter, in my mind. My lips part and the muscles in my face go slack with shock. Didn't anyone tell you you're not supposed to speak to humans who aren't your rider? Don't go getting yourself in trouble, Goldie, I whisper. From what I hear, dragons are pretty strict about breaking that rule. She simply sits, tucking her wings in, and tilts her head at me in that should-be impossible angle that almost makes me laugh. Holy hell! The rider of the red dragon to my right exclaims, and I turn toward him. He's a first year from the claw section, fourth wing, but I don't remember his name. Is that? He openly stares with fear, wide eyes at Terran. Yeah, I say, smiling at her. He is. My ankle throbs, aches, and genuinely feels like it's going to come apart at any second as I limp across the wide field, heading for the small formation directly ahead of me. Behind me, wind sporadically gusts as more dragons land and their riders dismount to have their names recorded. But it's softer and softer as the line spreads farther down the field. Dusk falls, and a series of mage lights illuminate the crowd in the bleachers and on the dais. In the very center, right above where the redhead from Parapet is recording roll, sits my mother, dressed in all her military finery, medals and all. At least anyone forget exactly who she is. Though there is an assortment of generals on the dais, each representing their wing. There's only one more highly decorated than Lilith Sorengale. And Melgren, the commanding general of all Navarian forces, has his beady eyes on Terran in open assessment. His focus flicks towards me, and I suppress a shudder. There's nothing but cold calculation in those eyes. Mom rises as I approach the roll keeper at the base of the dais, who's recording bonded pairs before motioning the next rider forward to maintain secrecy of a dragon's full name. Professor Koiy jumps off the 6-foot platform to my left and stares open-mouthed at Terran, his gaze sweeping over the massive black dragon, memorizing every single detail. Is that really? Commandant Panchek starts hovering at the edge of the dais with more than a dozen other uniformed high-ranking officers all gaping. Don't say it, Mom hisses, her eyes on Terran, not me. Not until she does. Because only a writer and the roll keeper know a dragon's full name. And she's not certain I'm really his. That's exactly what she's implying. Like I'd be able to hijack Terran. Anger simmers in my veins, overtaking the pain, coursing through my body as I move forward in the line, so there's only one other rider ahead of me. Mom forces me into the rider's quadrant. She didn't care if I lived or died as I crossed the parapet. The only thing she cared about now is how my flaws might mar her sterling reputation, or how my bonding might further her own agenda. And now she's staring at my dragon, without even bothering to look down and see if I'm alright. Fuck her. It's everything I expected, and yet I'm still disappointed. Sorry, excuse me. And still disappointing. The rider ahead finishes, moving out of the way, and the roll keeper looks up, glancing wide-eyed at Terran, before lowering her shocked gaze to mine and beckoning me forward. Violet Sorengale, she says as she writes in the Book of Writers. Nice to see that you've made it. She offers me a quick, shaky smile. For the record, please tell me the name of the dragon who chose you. I lift my chin. Ternanak. Pronunciation could use some work. Terran's voice rumbles through my head. Hey, at least I remembered. I think back in his general direction, wondering if he'll hear me across the field. At least I didn't let you fall to your death. He sounds utterly bored, but he definitely heard me. The woman grins, shaking her head as she writes down his name. I can't believe he bonded, Violet. He's a legend. I opened my mouth to agree. And Darna Urim. The sweet, high voice of the golden fills my mind. And Darna for short. I feel the blood rush from my face, and the edges of my vision sway as I pivot on my good ankle, staring back across the field at where the golden dragon, and Darna, now stands between Terran's front legs. Excuse me? Violet, are you all right? The redhead asks, and everyone around me above me leans in. Tell her, the golden insists. Terran, what am I supposed to do? I think at him. Tell the roll keeper her name. Terran echoes. Violet, the roll keeper repeats. Do you need a mender? I turn back to the woman and clear my throat. And Darna Urim, I whisper. Her eyes fly wide. Both dragons? She squawks. I nod. And all hell broke loose. All right. So that is the end of chapter 15. Alright, and I will be back in a little bit, and we will start chapter 16. Alright. Let's get ready for chapter 16, shall we? Yes. Comfortable? Alright. Chapter 16. Absolutely not! One general shouts loud enough that I can hear her all the way from the little medical station that's been set up at the end of the bleachers for writers. It's nothing but a row of a dozen tables and some flown-in supplies to tide us over until we can get to the healer quadrant, but at least the pain medication is taking effect. 2 dragons. I have 2 dragons. The generals have been screaming at each other for the last half hour, long enough for a chill to settle in the night air and for an instructor I've never met to sew up both sides of my arm. Lucky for me, Tynan mostly sliced through muscle, but didn't sever it. Unlucky for me, Jack is getting his shoulder examined about a dozen feet away. He strutted over from the back of an orange scorpion tail to record his bond with the roll keeper, who kept doing her job regardless of the generals arguing on the dais behind her. Jack hasn't quit staring at Taryn across the field. How is that? Professor Koiy asks quietly. Or how is that? Professor Koiy asks quietly, tightening the straps around my splinted ankle. There are about a million other questions in his slashing dark eyes, but he keeps them to himself. Hurts like hell. The swelling made it nearly impossible to get my boot back on without loosening every single lace to its widest position. But at least I didn't have to crawl across the field like a girl from Second Wing who had broken her leg during dismount. She's 7 tables back, crying softly as the rider field medics try to set her leg. You'll be focused on strengthening your bonds and riding in the next couple of months, so as long as you don't have trouble mounting or dismounting. His head tilts as he ties off the straps of my splint, which, after what I saw, I don't think you will. This sprain should heal before your next round of challenges. 2 lines deepen between his brow. Or I can call Nolan. No, I shake my head. I'll heal. If you're sure, he obviously isn't. Every eye in the valley is on me and my dragons. I correct myself. I can't afford to appear weak. Ooh, excuse me. He frowns but nods. Do you know who made it out of my squad? I ask, fear knotting my throat. Please let Rhiannon be alive. And Trina, and Riddick, and Sawyer, all of them. I haven't seen Trina or Tynan. Professor Koiy answers slowly, like he's trying to soften a blow it doesn't. Tynan won't be coming, I whisper, guilt gnawing at my stomach. That is not your kill to take credit for. Taryn mentally growls. I see, Professor Koiy murmurs. What the hell do you mean you think it needs surgery? Jack bellows from my left. I mean, it looks like the weapon severed a couple of ligaments, but we'll have to get you to the healers to be sure, the other instructor says, his voice infinitely patient as he secures Jack's sling. I look Jack straight in those evil eyes and smile. I'm done being scared of him. He ran back in that meadow. Rage mottles his cheek in the mage light, and he swings his feet over the end of his table and charges towards me. You! I what? I slip off the end of my table and leave my hands loose by the sheaths of my thighs. Professor Koiy's eyebrows jump as he glances between us. You? He murmurs. Me, I answer, keeping my focus on Jack. But Professor Koiy moves between us, throwing his palm out at Jack. I wouldn't get any closer to her. Hiding behind our instructors now, Soren Gale? Jack's uninjured fist curls. I didn't hide out there, and I'm not hiding here. I raise my chin. I'm not the one who ran. She doesn't need to hide behind me when she's bonded the most powerful dragon of your year. Professor Koiy warns Jack, whose eyes narrow on me. Your orange is a good choice, Barlow. Bade, right? He's had 4 other riders before you. Jack nods. Professor Koiy looks back over his shoulder at the line of dragons. And as aggressive as Bade might be, from the way Terran's looking at you, he'll have no problem scorching your bones into the earth if you take another step towards his rider. Jack stares at me in disbelief. You? Me. The throbbing in my ankle is down to a manageable, dull ache, even standing on it. He shakes his head, and the look in his eyes transforms from shock to envy to fear as he pivots towards the professor. I don't know what she told you about what happened out there. Nothing. The instructor folds his arms across his chest. Is there something I need to know? Jack pales, going white as a sheet in the mage light as another injured first year hobbles over, blood streaming from his thigh and torso. Everyone who needs to know already knows. I lock eyes with Jack. Guess we're done for the night, Koiy says as a line of dragons flies in, only visible by their silhouettes in the darkness. The senior riders are back. You two should return to your dragons. Jack huffs and marches off across the field. I glance at the generals still gathered in heated discussion on the dais. Professor Koiy, has someone ever bonded 2 dragons? If anyone knows, it's the professor of dragonkind. He turns with me to face the arguing leadership. You would be the first. Not sure why they're fighting about it, though. The decision won't be up to them. It won't? Wind gusts as dozens of dragons land on the opposite side of the first years, rows of mage lights hanging between them. Nothing about whose dragons choose is up to humans, Koiy assures me. We only like to maintain the illusion that we're in control. Something tells me they're just being waiting for the others to make it back before they meet. The leadership? My brows furrow. Koiy shakes his head. The dragons. The dragons are going to meet? Thank you for tending to my ankle. I'd better get back over there. I offer him a tentative smile and head across the dimly lit field to Terran and Andarna. Feeling the weight of every stair in the valley as I stop and stand between my 2 dragons. You 2 are causing a ruckus, you know. I look at Andarna, then glance up at Terran before turning around to face the field like the other first years. They're not going to let us do this. Oh shit, what if they make me choose? My stomach plummets. It's up to the Empyrean to decide. Terran says, but there's an edge of tension in his tone. Don't leave the field. This might take a while. What might? My question dies on my tongue as the biggest dragon I've ever seen, even larger than Terran, stalks towards us from the opening to the valley. Each dragon it passes walks into the center of the field and follows after, gathering dozens as it walks. Is that Coda? Terran answers. General Melgren's dragon. I make out the patchy holes in the in his battle-scarred wings as he comes closer, his golden gaze focused on Terran in a way that makes me nauseous. He growls, low in his throat, turning those sinister eyes on me. Terran rumbles his own growl, stepping forward so I'm between his massive claws. There's zero doubt I'm the subject of both disgruntled snarls. Yep, we're talking about you, Andarna says as the line passes by and she joins. Stay close to the wing leader until we return, Terran orders. Surely he meant to say squad leader. You heard what I said. Or not. I glance around and spot Xaden standing across the field, his arms crossed and legs spread as he stares at Terran. The riders are eerily silent as the dragons empty the meadow, taking flight in a steady stream near the end and landing halfway up the southernmost peak in a shadowy grouping I can only barely define in the moonlight. The second the last of the dragons fly, chaos erupts. First years swarm the center of the field where I happen to be standing, shouting in exuberance and searching for their friends. My eyes scan the crowd, hoping for some glimpse of Ree! I shout, spotting Rhiannon in the mob and limping her way. Violet! She crushes me into a hug, pulling me away when I wince at the fresh pain in my arm. What happened? Tynan's sword. I barely get the answer out of my mouth before I'm snatched off my feet by Riddick, who spins me around and my feet flying out in front of me. Look who rode in on the baddest motherfucker around! Put her down, Rhiannon chides. She's bleeding. Oh shit, sorry, Riddick says, and my feet find the ground. It's fine. There's fresh blood on the bandage, but I don't think I've torn any stitches, and painkillers are awesome. Are you alright? Who did you guys bond? The Green Daggertail, Rhiannon grins. Fierge. And it was just easy, she sighs. I saw her and just knew. Eotrum, Riddick says with pride. Brown Swordtail. Sleesig, Sawyer throws his arms around Rhiannon and Riddick's shoulders. Red Swordtail. We all cheer, and I'm swept into his hug next. Out of all of us, I'm happiest. Sorry. Out of all of us, I'm happiest for him. For all he's had to endure to get here. Trina, I ask as he lets me go. One by one, they shake their heads, looking to the others for answers. An impossible heaviness settles in my heart, and I search for other reasons. I mean, there's a possibility she's just unbonded, right? Sawyer shakes his head. Sorrow slackens his shoulders. I saw her fall from the back of an orange clubtail. My heart sinks. Tynan? Riddick asks, his gaze jumping between us. Terran killed him, I say softly. In his defense, Tynan had already run me through once. I gesture at the wound on my arm, and he was trying to... He tried what? I spun around by my shoulders and yanked against... I'm spun by the shoulders and yanked against the chest. Dane. My arms wind around his back and hold fast as I breathe deeply. Damn it, Violet. Just damn. He squeezes me tight, then pushes me to arm's length. You're hurt. I'm fine, I assure him, but that doesn't quell the worry in his eyes, and I'm sure anything ever will. But we're all that's left of our squad's first years. Dane's gaze rises to look at the others, and he nods. 4 out of 9. That's... His jaw ticks once. To be expected. The dragons are currently holding a meeting of the Empyrean, their leadership. Stay here until they return, he says to the others before looking down at me. You come with me. It's probably my mother, beckoning me through him. Surely she'll want to see me with everything that's going on. I glance around the field, but it's not my mom. I find watching me but Xaden. His expression unreadable. When Dane takes my hand and tugs, I turn away from Xaden, following Dane to the opposite edge of the field, where we're hidden in shadow. Guess it's not about Mom. What the actual fuck happened out there? Because I've got Kath telling me not only did Terran choose you, but so did the small one, and Darn. His fingers lace through mine, panic swirling his brown eyes. And Darna. I correct him, a smile playing on my lips at the thought of the small golden dragon. They're going to make you choose. His expression hardens, and the certainty that makes me recoil. I'm not choosing. I shake my head, disengaging our hands. No human has ever chosen, and I'm not about to be the first. And who the hell is Dane to tell me that? You are. He rips his hands over his hair, and his composure slips. You have to trust me. You do trust me, right? Of course I do. Then you have to choose Andarna. He nods as if his decree equals a decision made. The gold one is the safest choice of the two. Why? Because Terran is... Terran? Does Dane think I'm too weak for a dragon as strong as Terran? My mouth opens, then shuts like a fish out of water as I search for any reply that isn't fuck off. There's no way in hell I'm rejecting Terran, but my heart won't let me reject Andarna either. Are you going to make me choose? I think in their direction. Okay. Alright. Reposition myself here. There's no response. And where I've felt an extension of my mind, of who I am, stretching my mental boundaries since Terran first spoke to me in that field, there's nothing now. I'm cut off. Don't panic. I'm not choosing, I repeat, softer this time. What if I can't have either of them? What if they've broken some sacred rule and now we'll all be punished? You are, and it has to be Andarna. He grips my shoulders and leans in, an edge of urgency in his tone. I know she's too small to bear a rider. That hasn't been tested, I say defensively, even though I know it's true. The physics just don't match up. And it doesn't matter. It will mean that you won't be able to ride with a wing. But they'll probably make you a permanent instructor here like Koiy. That's because his signet power makes him indispensable as a teacher, not because his dragon can't fly, I argue. And even he had the requisite 4 years with a combat wing before he had to be put behind a desk. Dane looks away, and I can almost see the gears in his mind turning as he calculates. What? My risk? My choice? My freedom? Even if you take Andarna into combat, there's only a chance you'll be killed. You take Terran and Xaden will get you killed. You think Melgren is terrifying? I've been here for a year longer than you have, Vi. At least you know what you're getting when it comes to Melgren. Xaden isn't only twice as ruthless, but he is dangerously unpredictable. I blink. Wait, what are you saying? They're a mated pair. Terran and Sigale, the strongest bonded pair in centuries. My mind whirs. Mated pairs can't be separated for long, or their health diminishes, or so they're always stationed together, always. Which means, oh gods, just tell me how it happened. He must see me fumbling because his voice softens. So I do. I tell him how Jack and his band of murderous friends hunting Andarna. I tell him about falling and the field and Xaden watching. Xaden, shockingly protecting me with his warnings when Orin was at my back. He had the perfect opportunity to end me without it tipping his scales, and he chose to help. What the hell am I supposed to do with that? Xaden was there? Dane says quietly, but the gentleness leaches from his voice. Yes, I nod. But he left after Terran showed up. Xaden was there when you defended Andarna, and then Terran just showed up? Sorry, my back itches. Yes, that's what I just said. Was the timeline confusing him? What are you getting at? Don't you see what happened? What Xaden's done? His grip tightens. Thank gods for the dragon scale armor, or I might have bruises tomorrow. Please do tell me what it is you think I've done. A shape emerges from the shadows, and my pulse quickens as Xaden steps into the moonlight, darkness falling off him like a discarded veil. He rushes through every vein, every vein, wakes every nerve ending. I hate the reaction of my body to the sight of him, but I can't deny it. His appeal is so fucking inconvenient. You manipulating threshing. Dane's hands drop from my shoulders, and he turns to face our wing leader, the set of his shoulders rigid as he puts himself between us. Oh shit, that's a huge allegation to hurl. Dane, that's... Paranoid, I sidestep Dane's back. If Xaden was going to kill me, he wouldn't have waited this long to do it. He's had every possible opportunity, and yet I'm still standing here, bonded to his dragon's mate. Xaden's not going to kill me. The realization makes my chest tighten, makes me re-examine everything that's happened in that field, makes my sense of gravity shift beneath my feet. Is that an official accusation? Xaden looks at Dane like a hindrance of an annoyance. Did you step in? Dane demands. Did I what? Xaden arches a brow and levels a look on Dane that would make a lesser person wither. Did I see her outnumbered and already wounded? Did I think her bravery was as admirable as it was fucking reckless? He turns that stare to me, and I feel the impact all the way to my toes. And I would do it again. I raise my chin. Well, the fuck aware, Xaden roars, losing his temper for the first time since I met him on Parapet. I pull in a quick breath, and Xaden does the same, as if he's just as shocked by his outburst as I am. Did I see her fight off 3 bigger cadets? His glare pivots to Dane, because the answer to all of those is yes, but you're asking the wrong questions, Atos. What you should be asking is if Sigale saw it too. Dane swallows and looks away, obviously rethinking his position. His mate told him, I whisper. Sigale called for Terran. She's never been a fan of bullies, Xaden says to me, but don't mistake it as an act of kindness towards you. She's fond of the little dragon. Unfortunately, Terran chose you all on his own. Fuck, Dane mutters. My thoughts exactly. Xaden shakes his head at Dane. Sorengale is the last person on the continent I'd ever want to be chained to me. I didn't do this. Ouch. It takes all the willpower in my body not to reach for my chest and make sure he didn't just rip my heart out from beneath my ribs, which makes absolutely zero sense, since I feel the same way about him. He's the son of the great betrayer. His father was directly responsible for Brennan's death. And even if I had, Xaden moves towards Dane, towering over him, what would you really level the accusations knowing it would have been what saved the woman you call your best friend? My gaze flies to Dane, and a silent, damning moment passes. It's a simple question, and yet I find myself holding my breath for his answer. What do I really mean to him? There are rules. Dane tilts his chin to look at Xaden in the eyes. Out of curiosity, would you have, let's say, bent those rules to save your precious little Violet in the field? His voice ices over as he studies Dane's expression with rapt fascination. Xaden had taken a step right before Terran landed. He'd moved towards me. Dane's jaw flexes, and I see the war in his eyes. That's unfair to ask him. I move to Dane's side, as the sound of whipping wings interrupts the night. The dragons are flying back. They've made their decision. I'm ordering you to answer, squad leader. Xaden doesn't even spare me a glance. Dane swallows, his eyes slamming shut. No, I wouldn't have. My heart hits the ground. I've always known deep down that Dane valued rule and order more than relationships, more than me. But to have it so cruelly displayed cuts deeper than Tynan's sword. Xaden scoffs. Give me 1 second. I'm going to take a quick drink. Alright. Dane immediately jerks his head towards mine. It would have killed me to watch something happen to you, Vi, but the rules. It's all right. I force out, touching his shoulder, but it isn't. The dragons are returning, Xaden says, as the first of them lands on the illuminated field. Get back to formation, squad leader. Dane rips his gaze from mine and walks away, blending into the crowd of hurried riders and their dragons. Why would you do that to him? I hurl at Xaden, then shake my head. I don't care why. Forget it. I mutter, then march off, heading back toward the spot where Taryn told me to wait. Because you put too much faith in him, Xaden answers, anyway, catching up to me without even lengthening his stride. And knowing who to trust is the only thing that will keep you alive. Keep us alive. Not only in the quadrant, but after graduation. There is no us, I say, dodging a rider as she races past. Dragons land left and right, and the ground trembled with the force of the riot's movement. I've never seen so many dragons at flight at the same moment. Oh, I think you'll find that that's no longer the case, Xaden murmurs next to me, gripping my elbow and yanking me out of the path of another rider running from the other direction. Yesterday, he would have let me run headfirst into him. Hell, he might have even pushed me. Terran's bonds are so powerful, both to mate and rider, because he's so powerful. Losing his last rider nearly killed him, which, in turn, nearly killed Sigale. Mated pairs' lives are interdependent, I know that. We move forward until we're dead center in the line of riders. If I wasn't so aggravated by Xaden's callous attitude towards Dane, I would take the time to admire just how spectacular it is to see hundreds of dragons land all around us. Or maybe I'd question how the man next to me manages to consume all the air in the massive field. Each time a dragon chooses a rider, that bond is stronger than the last. Which means, if you die, Violence, it sets off a chain of events that potentially ends with me dying too. His expression is immovable marble, but the anger in his eyes leaves me breathless. It's pure rage. So yeah, unfortunately for everyone involved, there's now an us if the Empyrean lets Terran's choice stand. Oh gods, I'm tethered to Xaden Ryerson. Alright. And now that Terran is in play, the other cadets know he's willing to bond. He sighs, annoyance rippling from his features, his strong jaw working as he looks away. That's why Terran told me to stay with you, I whisper as the consequence of today's actions settled in my churning stomach. Because of the unbonded. There are at least 36 of them standing on the opposite side of the field, watching us with avarice in their eyes, including Orin Seifert. The unbonded are going to try to kill you in hopes they'll get Terran to bond them. Xaden shakes his head at Garrick as he approaches, and the section leader glances between us, his mouth set in a firm line, before retreating across the field. Terran is one of the strongest dragons on the continent, and the vast power he channels is about to be yours. The next few months, the unbonded will try to kill a newly paired rider while the bond is weak. While they still have a chance of that dragon changing its mind and picking them, so they're not set back a full year. And for Terran, they'll do just about anything. He sighs again, like it's his new full-time job. There are 41 unbonded riders, for which you are now target number 1. He holds up a single finger. And Terran thinks you'll play bodyguard? I snort. Little does he know just how much you dislike me. He knows exactly how much I value my own life, Xaden retorts, glancing down my body. You're freakishly calm for someone who just heard she's about to be hunted. It's a typical Wednesday for me, I shrug, ignoring the way his gaze heats my skin. And honestly, being hunted by 41 people is a lot less intimidating than constantly watching dark corners for you. A breeze hits my back as Andarna lands behind me, followed by a gust of wind and shuddering ground when it's Terran. Without another word, Xaden rips his gaze from mine and walks away, cutting a slightly diagonal path across the field where Sigil overshadows the other wing leader's dragons. Tell me it's going to be alright, I murmur toward Andarna and Terran. It is how it should be, Terran answers, his voice gruff and bored at the same time. You didn't answer before. Fine, it sounded a little accusatory. Humans can't know what's said with the Empyrean, Andarna answers. It's a rule. So every writer was blocked, not just me. The thought is oddly comforting. Also, the whole Empyrean is a new term for me today. Koiy must be in heaven tonight with all the dragon politics coming to light. What did they decide? I glance at my mother, but she's looking everywhere but my direction. General Melgren moves towards the front of the dais, his uniform dripping in medals. Dane's right in one way. The top general in our kingdom is terrifying. He's never had an issue using infantry for fodder. And his cruelty when it comes to overseeing the interrogation and execution of prisoners is well known. At least in my family family's dining room table. His enormous nightmare of a dragon takes up the entire space beside the dais, and a hush falls over the crowd as Melgrim angles his hands in front of his face. Coda has relayed that the dragons have spoken regarding the Sorengale girl. Lesser magic allows his voice to magically amplify over the field for all to hear. Woman, I mentally correct him, my stomach nodding. While tradition has shown that there is one rider for every dragon, there has never been a case of 2 dragons selecting the same rider, and therefore there is no dragon law against it, he declares. While we riders may not feel as though this is equitable, his tone implies that he's one of them, dragons make their own laws. Both Terran and, he looks over his shoulder, and his aide rushes forward to whisper in his ear, and Darna have chosen Violet Sorengale, and so their choice stands. The crowd murmurs, but my shoulders sag in acute relief. I don't have to make an impossible choice. And as it should be, Terran grumbles, humans have no say in the laws of dragons. Mom steps forward and makes the same gesture with her hands to protect her voice, but I can't concentrate on what she's saying as she closes out the formal portion of the threshing ceremony, promising the unbonded riders another chance next year if they don't manage to kill one of us while our bonds are weak in the next few months and try to bond our dragons themselves. I belong to Terran and Andarna. And, in some really fucked up way, Xaden. My scalp prickles, and I glance across the field at him. As if sensing my gaze, he looks over and holds up a single finger. Target number 1. Welcome to a family that knows no boundaries, no limits, and no end, my mother finishes, and a cheer resounds around the field. Riders, step forward. I look left and right in confusion, and so does every other writer. 5 steps or so, Taryn says. I take them. Dragons, it is our honor as always, Mom calls out. Now we celebrate. Heat blasts my back, and I hiss in pain as riders on both sides of me cry out. My back feels like it's on fucking fire, and yet everyone across the field is cheering. Rockish is cheering, some of them racing our way. Other riders are caught up in embraces. You'll like it, Taryn promises. It's unique. The pain fades to a dull ache, and I glance over my shoulder. There's a solid black something peeking out from the vest. I'll like what? Violet! Dane reaches me, his smile wide, as he cups my face. You kept both of them? I guess I did. My lips curve. It's all surreal. All too much for one day. Where's your... He lets go and circles me. Can I unlace this? Just the top? He asks, tugging at the raised neck of the back of my vest. I nod. A few pushes and pulls later, the crisp October air nips at the base of my neck. Holy shit! You have to see this. Tell the boy to move, Taryn orders. Taryn says you should move away. Or you should move. Dane steps out of the way. Suddenly my vision isn't mine. I'm looking at my own back through Andarna's eyes. A back that has a glistening black relic of a dragon mid-flight, stretching from shoulder to shoulder, and in the center, the silhouette of a shimmering golden one. It's beautiful, I whisper. I'm marked by their magic as a writer now, as their writer. We know, Andarna answers. I blink and my vision is mine again, and Dane's hands lace up my corset quickly. Then are on my face, tipping it up towards his. You have to know that I would do anything to save you, Violet, to keep you safe, he blurts, panic in his eyes. What Ryerson said, he shakes his head. I know, I say, reassuringly, nodding even as something cracks in my heart. You always want me safe. He'd do anything except break the rules. You have to know how I feel about you. His thumb stroke over my cheek, his eyes searching for something, then his mouth is on mine. His lips are soft, but the kiss is firm, and delight races up my spine. After years, Dane is finally kissing me. The thrill is gone in less than a heartbeat. There's no heat, no energy, no sharp slice of lust. Disappointment sours the moment, but not for Dane. He's all smiles as he pulls away. It was over in an instant. And it was everything I've ever wanted, except, shit, I don't want it anymore. Alright, that was the end of chapter 16. Alrighty. We'll be back in a little bit to read chapter 17, guys. Alrighty. Alright. Got 2 more chapters to go, guys. Alright. Now we start with chapter 17. Chapter 17. After sleeping in the crowded barracks for the last 2 months, it's weird and oddly decadent to have my own room. I'll never take the luxury of privacy for granted again. I close my door behind me as I limp into the hallway. Rhiannon's door, across the small hall from mine, opens and I see Sawyer's tall, lean frame come out. He runs his fingers through his hair, and when he sees me, his eyebrows rise and he freezes, his cheeks almost as red as his freckles. "Good morning," I grin. "Violet." He forces an awkward smile and walks off, headed towards the main hallway of the first-year dormitory. A couple from the second wing holds hands as they come out of the next door, or the room next to Rhiannon's, and I offer them a smile as I lean back against my door and wait, testing my ankle and by rolling it. It's sore, just like every time I sprained it, but the brace of my boot, the brace and my boot hold it in place well enough to keep my weight on it. If I were anywhere else, I would call for crutches, but that would just put another target on my back, and according to Xaden, I already have a big enough one as it is. Rhiannon walks out of her room and smiles as soon as she sees me. "No more breakfast duty?" I was told last night that all the less desirable duties were being handed off to the unbonded so our energy can be redirected for flight lessons. Which means I'll have to find another way to weaken my opponents before challenges. Zayden's right. I can't always count on taking every enemy down with poison. And I'm not going to ignore the only advantage I have here either. "One more reason for the unbonded to hate us," Rhiannon mutters. "So, Sawyer, huh, Rhi?" We start down our hallway, passing a few other rooms before meeting up with the main corridor that leads to the rotunda. Have to say, the first-year rooms aren't as spacious as the second years, but at least we both got ones with windows. A grin curves her lips. I felt like celebrating. She darts a quick side-eye at me. "And why have I not heard of you celebrating?" We melt into the crowd, moving toward the gathering hall. "Haven't found anyone I want to celebrate with." "Really? Because I heard that you and a certain squad leader had a moment last night." My gaze whips towards her, and I nearly stumble over my feet. "Come on, Vi. The entire quadrant was out there, and you don't think someone saw you?" She rolls her eyes. You're not going to get a lecture from me. Who gives a shit if it's frowned upon to be in a relationship with a superior officer? There's no regulation, and it's not like any of us is guaranteed to live through the day." "Solid points," I admit. "But I shake my head, searching for the right words. "It's not like that with us. I'd always hoped it would be, but when he kissed me, there was nothing there. Like, nothing." It's impossible to keep the disappointment out of my voice. "Well, that's shitty to hear." She hooks her arm through mine. "I'm sorry." "Me too," I sigh. A door opens further down the hall, and Liam Mari walks out with his arm wrapped around the wrist of another first year, who's bonded a brown clubtail. Looks like everyone was celebrating last night, except me. "Good morning, ladies." Riddick forces his way through the crowd and slings an arm around each of our shoulders as we enter the rotunda. Or should I say, riders? Sorry. I like the sound of riders, Rhiannon replies, shooting a smile in his direction. "It has a certain ring to it," Riddick agrees. "It's definitely better than dead." Where's your relic?" I ask Riddick as we pass through the columns of carved dragons and take the steps into the commons. Right here. His arm falls off my shoulder and he shoves the sleeve of his tunic up to reveal the brown mark of a dragon silhouette on his upper arm. You? Can't see it. It's on my back. That will keep you safer if you've ever separated from that massive dragon of yours. His eyes dance. I swear I thought I was going to shit myself when I saw him on the field. What about yours, Ree? Somewhere you'll never see, she responds. You wound me. He slaps his hand over his heart. I highly doubt that, she retorts, and there's a smile on her face. We move through commons and into the gathering hall, then make our way through the line for breakfast. It's odd to be on this side of it, and I startle at the sight of the guy behind the counter. It's Orin. He glares at me with a hatred that trickles like ice down my spine. I skip his station, opting for fresh fruit that I know can't be tampered with. Just in case he decides to take my approach to conflict and poison me. Asshole, Riddick mutters. I still can't believe they tried to kill you. I can, I shrug, taking my chances with a mug of apple juice. I'm the weakest link, right? Unfortunately for me, that means people are bound to try and take me out for the good of the wing. We head forward, we head towards the fourth wing section and find a table with 3 extra seats. Mind if we, Riddick starts. Absolutely, it's yours, a couple of guys from tail section scurry off the bench. Sorry, Sorengale, the other says over his shoulder as they find another table, leaving this one empty. What the hell? Well, that was really fucking weird. Rian rounds the other side of the table, and I follow, putting our backs to the wall as we step over the bench and sit. Setting our trays in front of us. I'm half tempted to give my underarms a whiff to see if I smell. Even weirder? Riddick remarks, gesturing across the hall towards First Wing. Following his line of sight, my eyebrows lift. Jack Barlow is being squeezed out of his table. He's forced to stand as others take his seat. What the hell is going on? Rhiannon bites into a pear and chews. Jack moves to another table whose occupants won't make room for him, and then finds a place 2 tables down. How the mighty have fallen, Riddick notes, watching the same show I am. But there's no satisfaction in watching Jack struggle. Feral dogs bite harder when they're cornered. Hey, Sorengale, the stocky girl from First Wing I beat in my second challenge says with a tight smile as she walks past our table. Hi, I wave awkwardly as she walks away, then turn to whisper to Riddick and Rhiannon. She hasn't spoken to me since I took one of her daggers in that challenge. It's because you bonded Taryn. Imogen blows her pink hair out of her face and throws her leg over the bench across from us to sit, pushing up the sleeves of her tunic and revealing her rebellion mark. The morning after threshing is always a clusterfuck. Power balance shifts, and you, little Sorengale, are now about to be the most powerful rider in the quadrant. Anyone with common sense is going to be scared of you. I blink, my pulse elevating. Is that what's going on? I look around the hall and take note. Social groups have split up, and some of the cadets I would have considered threats are no longer sitting where they usually do. Which is why you're now sitting with us. Rhiannon arches a brow at the second year. Because I can count on one hand the number of nice words you've said to any of us. She holds up a fist with 0 fingers raised. Quinn, the tall second year in our squad, who hasn't bothered to do or to so much as look our way since parapet, takes a seat next to Imogen, and Sawyer arrives, sitting on Rhiannon's other side. Quinn tucks her blonde curls behind her ears and brushes her bangs out of her eyes, her round cheeks rising as she smiles at something Imogen says. Have to admit, the hooped piercing that lines the shells of both her ears are pretty awesome. And among her half-dozen patches, it's the dark green one, the same color as her eyes, with two silhouettes that's most intriguing. I should have studied up on what all the patches mean, but according to what I've heard, they change every year. I'm personally a fan of the first ones we've been giving. I had to sew the flame-shaped patch on with the emblem of fourth wing, or for the fourth wing, and the centered reddish number 2 with with great care, being surely to only stitch the fabric of my corseted armor, since it's not like any needles is going to penetrate the scales. My favorite patch, though, is the one beside the flame section one, where we're the squad to have the most surviving members since Parapet, this year's Iron Squad. You weren't interesting enough to sit with before, Imogen responds, then bites into a muffin. I usually sit with my girlfriend in claw section. Besides, no use getting to know you when most of you die, Quinn adds, tucking her curls away again, just to have them spring forward. No offense. None taken, I started on my apple. I nearly spit it out when Heaton and Emery, the only third years in our squad, flank Imogen and Quinn on the bench across from us. The only people we're missing are Dane and Siennan, who are eating with leadership as usual. I thought Seaford would bond, Heaton says to Emery, though the table, sorry. Heaton says to Emery across the table, as though we've caught them mid-discussion. The normally red flames in their hair are green today. Other than losing to Sorengale, he nailed every challenge. He tried to kill Andarna. Shit, maybe I should have kept that to myself. Every head at the table turns towards me. My guess would be that Taryn told the others. I shrugged. But Barlow bonded, Riddick questions. Though, from what I've heard, his orange scorpion tail is on the smaller side. She is, Quinn confirms, which is why he's struggling this morning. Don't worry, I'm sure he'll make up for his lack of social standings in other ways, Rhiannon mutters, her gaze narrowing on my tray. You have to have some protein, Vi. You can't just survive on fruit. It's the only food I can be sure isn't tampered with, especially with Oren behind the counter. I busy myself with peeling an orange. Oh, for fuck's sake, Imogen scrapes 3 pieces of sausage onto my plate. She's right. You're going to need all your strength to ride, especially with a dragon as big as Taryn. I stare at the sausage. Imogen hates me just as much as Oren does. Hell, she's the one who broke my arm and ripped out my shoulder on assessment day. You can trust her, Taryn says, and I startle, dropping the orange. She hates me. Stop arguing with me and eat something. There's zero room for debate in his tone. My gaze rises to meet Imogen's, and she tilts her head, staring back in challenge. I use my fork to cut the link, then pop it into my mouth and chew, focusing on the conversation at the table again. What's your signet? Rhiannon asks Emery. Air rushes down the table, rattling the glass. Air manipulation. Got it. It's epic! Riddick's eyes widen. How much air can you move? None of your business. He barely spares him a glance. Sorengale, after class is out today, you're mine, Imogen says. I swallow my current bite. I'm sorry? Her pale green eyes lock on mine. Meet me in the sparring gym. I'm already working with her on sparring, Rhiannon starts. Good. We can't afford her to lose any challenges, Imogen retorts. But I'm going to help you with weights. We need to strengthen the muscles around your joints before challenges resume. That's the only way you'll survive. The hairs rise on the back of my neck. And since when do you care about my survival? This isn't a squad thing. It can't be. Not when she didn't give a shit before. Since now, she says, gripping her fork in her fist, but it's the lightning fast glance towards the dais at the end of the hall that gives her away. Her concern isn't coming from the goodness of her heart. Something tells me it's an order. Squads are about to be condensed at morning formation. We'll be down to 2 in every section, she continues. Atos kept the highest number of his first years alive, hence the patch. So we'll be allowed to retain his squad, but we'll probably gain a few when they strip the squads from those who weren't as successful. As discreetly as I can, I look to my right, past the fourth wing tables, and to the let me reposition my spell. And to the dais where Xaden sits with his executive officer and the section leader, including Garrick, whose shoulders look like they should take up at least 2 seats. It's Garrick who looks my way first, his forehead lining with, what is that? Worry? Then he looks away. And the only reason he'd be remotely worried, he knows. He knows my fate is tethered to Xaden's. My gaze snaps to Xaden, and my chest tightens. So freaking beautiful. Apparently my body doesn't care that he's as dangerous as they come in the quadrant, because heat rushes through my veins, flushing my skin. He's using a dagger to peel an apple, removing the rind in one long curl, and the blade continues its path as his soft eyes lift, locking with mine. My whole head tingles. Gods, is there any part of my body that doesn't physically react to the sight of him? He glances towards Imogen and back to me, and that's all it takes for me to know for certain. He's ordering her to help train me. Xaden Ryerson is now in the business of keeping his mortal enemy alive. A few hours later, after the squads are rearranging and the death roll is read, all the first-year riders in Fourth Wing stand in our newly issued flight leathers, waiting in front of our dragons on the flight field. The uniform is thicker than our usual one, with a full jacket I've buttoned over my dragon scale armor. And unlike our regular uniforms, whatever we choose them to be, flight leathers bear no insignia besides our rank at our shoulders and any leadership designation. No names, no patches, nothing that could give us away if we're separated from our dragons behind enemy lines. Just a lot of sheaths for weapons. I try not to think about possibly fighting in the war effort one day, and focus on the organized chaos involving on the flight field this morning. I can't miss the way the other cadets look at Terran, or the wide berth the other dragons give him. Honestly, if I had those teeth bared at me, I'd back away too. No, you wouldn't, because you didn't. You stayed and defended Andarna. His voice fills my head, and I can tell from his tone there are places he'd rather be. Only because there was a lot going on at the moment, I respond. And Darna isn't coming this morning? She has no need for flight lessons when she can't bear you. Good point. I thought it would have been nice to see her. She's quieter in my head, too. Not as meddlesome as Terran. I heard that. Now pay attention. I roll my eyes, but focus on what Koiy is saying from the center of the field. His hand is up, using common lesser magic to project his voice, so we can all hear. God help us when Riddick figures out how to do that. I bite back a smile, knowing he'll find some way to annoy the shit out of every rider in the quadrant, not just his squad. And at only 92 riders, you are our smallest class to date. My shoulder dips. I thought 101 were willing to bond, plus you. Willing doesn't mean they found worthy riders, Terran answers, and yet 2 of you chose me. With with 41 unbonded, that's quite the insult. You're worthy. At least I think you are. But you apparently don't pay attention in class, he chuffs, and a warm puff of steam blasts the back of my neck. There are 41 unbonded riders who would kill to be standing where you are, Koiy continues. And your dragons know that your bond is at it. Sorry. And your dragons know that your bond is at its weakest point right now. So if you fail, there's a good chance your dragon might let you if it thinks the unbonded will be a better choice. Comforting, I mutter. Taryn makes a noise that reminds me of a scoff. Now we're going to mount, then follow a series of specific maneuvers your dragons already know. Your orders are simple today. Stay in your seat, Koiy finishes. Then he turns and breaks into a sprint, racing the dozen feet towards his dragon's foreleg and making the vertical jump to mount. Just like the last obstacle of the gauntlet. I swallow, wishing I hadn't eaten so much for breakfast, and turn to face Taryn. To my left and right, other riders are doing the same mounting maneuver. There's no way I can pull that off normally, let alone with my ankle still healing. Taryn dips his shoulders and makes his leg into a ramp for me. Defeat just about swallows me whole. I've bonded the biggest and certainly grumpiest dragon in the quadrant, and yet he has to make accommodations for me. There are accommodations for me. I've seen your memories. I'm not about to have you sticking daggers into my leg to climb up. Now let's go. I snort, but make the ascent, shaking my head as I navigate his spikes to find the seat. My thighs ache from yesterday, but I wince as I get into position, gripping the pommels of scales. Koiy's dragon launches into the sky. Hold tight. I feel the same bands of energy clamp around my legs, and Tyrion crouches a millisecond before he hurls us skyward. The wind tears at my eyes and as my stomach falls, and I risk holding on with one hand to lower my flight goggles. Immediate relief. We had to go second, I asked Taryn as we fly out of the canyon and higher into the mountain range. I get it now. Why I didn't see the dragons training often, even though I've basically grown up at Basgiath. The only people around us are other riders. Everyone is going to see when I slide right off. I only agreed to follow Smocked because his rider is your instructor. So you're an in-front kind of guy? Good to know. Remind me to spend some time at Temple so I can make multiple appeals to Dune. I keep my focus on Koiy, watching for when the maneuvers will start. The goddess of strength and war? Taryn clearly scoffs this time. What, dragons don't think we need the gods on our side? Shit, it's cold up here. My gloved hands tighten on the pommels. Dragons pay no heed to your puny gods. Koiy banks right, and Taryn follows suit, leading us into a steep dive down the face of one of the peaks. I clench with my legs, but I know it's Taryn keeping me in the seat. He holds me there, though, another climb and even near spiral of a turn, and I can't help but notice that he's taking everything Koiy is doing and making it harder. You can't hold me here the entire time, you know. Watch me. Unless you'd rather be scraped off the glacier below like Glean's rider back there. I whip my head around to look, but all I see is Taryn's tail swinging, his massive spikes blocking the view. Don't look. We already lost a rider? My throat knots. Glean chose poorly. He never bonds strongly anyway. Oh my god. If you keep holding me like this, your energy will go into keeping me on instead of channeling when we need power for battle, I argue. It's a minuscule amount of my power. How the hell am I supposed to be a rider if I can't stay on my damn dragon by myself? Have it your way. The bands fall away. Thank you. Oh, shit! He banks left and my thighs slip. My hands slide I skid right off the side, my fingers fumbling for purchase and finding none. Rushing air fills my ears as I plummet toward the glacier, raw fear gripping my heart and squeezing like a vice. The shape of a body below grows bigger and bigger. I'm yanked upward as Terran's claws catch me, harnessing me just like he did during threshing. He climbs high, then tosses me again, but at least I'm prepared for impact this time as his back rises to meet my falling bottom. There's a distinguished roar of something I don't understand in my head. What the hell does that mean? I scramble for the seat and get myself into position as he flies level. The closest translation for humans is probably "for fuck's sake." Now, are you going to stay in your seat this time? He dips back into formation, and I manage to stay on. I have to be able to do this by myself. We both need me to do this, I argue. Stubborn silver human, Terran mutters, following Koiy into a dive. I fall again, and again, and again. Later that evening, after dinner, I make my way to the sparring gym. Everything hurts from how many times I slid off Terran's back, and I'm pretty sure there are bruises under my arms from him catching me. I'm through the rotunda and crossing into the academic wing when I hear Dane calling my name, jogging to catch up with me. I wait for the familiar swell of happiness that we might have a minute alone, but it doesn't come. Instead, there's a sea of awkwardness that I don't know how to navigate. Me reposition myself again, I'm sorry. I love my chair. Sometimes I just wish I could sit comfortably. Okay. What the hell is wrong with me? Dane is gorgeous and kind and a really good man. He's honorable and my very best friend. So why don't we have any chemistry? Rhiannon said you were headed this way, he says once he reaches my side, concern knitting his brow. I'm going to work out. I force a smile as we turn the corner where the gym is just ahead of us. A large arched door opens. An arched door opens. You didn't get enough during flight today? He touched my shoulder and stops. So I do too, pivoting to face him in the empty hallway. I definitely fell enough today. I checked the bandage on my arm. At least I didn't tear open my stitches. His jaw works. I honestly thought you'd be alright once Terran chose you. And I will be, I assure him, my voice rising. I just need to strengthen my muscles and stay seated through maneuvers, and Tyrion insists on making everything harder than what Koiy is doing. For your own good. Are you always around? I snap back mentally. Yes, get used to it. I fight the urge to growl at the intrusive overbearing. Still here, Violet? Dane asks. Sorry, I'm not used to Terran butting into my thoughts. It's a good sign. Means your bond is strengthening. And honestly, I'm not sure why he's giving you a hard time with maneuvers. It's not like there are any aerial threats out there besides griffins. And we all know one breath of fire means those birds are goners. Tell him to ease up on you. Tell him to mind his own business. I'll, do that. I bite back a laugh. Take it easy on him. He's my best friend. Sorry, I moved a little bit. Terran snorts. A sigh rips from Dane's lips, and he palms my face gently, his gaze dropping to my lips for a heartbeat before he steps back. Look, about last night. The part where you told me Xaden would get me killed if I bonded Terran, or the part where you kissed me? I folded my arms across my chest, careful with my right. The kiss, he admits, his voice lowering. It never happened. Or it never should have happened. Relief courses through me. Right. I crack a smile. Thank gods he feels the same way. And it doesn't mean we're not friends. The best of friends, he agrees. And but his eyes are heavy with a sadness I don't understand. And it's not that I don't want you. What? My eyebrows rise. What are you saying? Are our wires somehow crossed? I'm saying the same thing you are. Two lines appear between his brows. It's incredibly frowned upon to have a physical relationship with anyone in our chain of command. Oh, yeah, that definitely isn't what I'm saying. And you know how hard I've worked to be a squad leader. I'm determined to be a wing leader next year. And as much as you mean to me, he shakes his head. Oh, this is all about politics for him. Right. I nod my head. I get it. It shouldn't matter that the only reason he isn't pursuing me is rank. And it honestly doesn't. But it definitely makes me lose a little respect for him, which is something I never expected. And maybe next year, if you're in a different wing, or even after graduation, he starts, hope lighting up his eyes. Sorengale, let's go. I'm not sitting around all night, Imogen calls from the doorway, her arms folded across her chest. If our squad leader is done with you, that is. Dane rears back, glancing between Imogen and me. She's training you? She offered. I shrug. Squad loyalty and all that, blah blah. Imogen offers a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Don't worry, I'll take good care of her. Bye, Atos. I toss Dane a quick smile and walk away, refusing to look over my shoulder to see if he's still there. She quickly follows after me, then leads me towards the corner on the left where glass meets stone, and pushes open a door I've never taken the time to notice before. The room is lit with mage lights and full of a variety of wooden machinery with racks and ropes and pulleys, benches with levers and bars. Ow! I just like hit a bunch of pages at once. And bars attached to the wall. And on the other side, doing push-ups on the mat, is one of the first year tears I saw in the woods that night. Garrick crouched down next to her, urging her on. Don't worry, Sorengale. Imogen coos in a sauntering sweet tone. There's only 3 of us in here. You're perfectly safe. Garrick turns, his gaze meeting mine, even as he continues calling off reps for the other first year. He nods once, then goes back to his task. You're the only one I worry about, I say as she leads me to the machine with a polished wooden seat and 2 cushioned squares that meet in front of it at knee height. She laughs, and I think it's the first genuine sound I've heard her make. Fair point. Since we can't work that ankle of yours or your arms until they heal, we're going to start with the most important muscle you have for staying on a dragon. She glances down at my body and sighs with obvious distaste. Those weak-ass inner thighs. You're only doing this because Xaden is making you, right? I ask, parking my ass in the seat of the machine with the cushioned wood between my knees as she makes adjustments. Her eyes meet mine and narrow. Rule number 1. He's Ryerson to you, first year. And you never get to question me about him. Ever. That's 2 rules. I'm starting to think my first guess about them is right. What kind of fierce loyalty they have to be lovers. I am not jealous. Nope. That pit of ugliness spread inside my chest isn't jealousy. It can't be. She scoffs and pulls a lever that puts immediate tension on the wood, and they rush outward, separating my thighs. Now get to work. Push them back together. 30 reps. Alright. So that is the end of chapter 17. Sorry. Alright. Let me... Alright, so in a bit we'll be back and we will finish reading with chapter 18. Alright. Time to read the last chapter of today. Alright. I got through this faster than I thought I would. Chapter 18. The wooden library cart squeaks as I push it over the bridge that connects the Rider's Quadrant to the Healer, and then past the clinic doors to the heart of Besgaeth. Mage lights illuminate my way down the tunnels as I take a path so familiar that I could walk it with my eyes shut. The scent of earth and stone fills my lungs the deeper I descend, and the stab of longing that hits me nearly every day for the past month, since I was assigned to archive duty, isn't quite as sharp as it was yesterday, and that wasn't as sharp as the day before. I nod to the first-year scribe at the entrance of the archives, and he jumps out of his seat, hurrying to open the vault-like door. "Good morning, Cadet Sorringale," he says, holding the entrance open as I can pass. "I missed you yesterday." "Good morning, Cadet Pearson." I offer him a smile as I push the cart through. As quadrant chores go, I scored my favorite. I wasn't feeling well. I had a dizzy spell all day, no doubt from not drinking enough water. I wasn't feeling well. I had a dizzy spell all day, no doubt from not drinking enough water, but at least I'd been able to rest. The archives smell like parchment, book binding glue, and ink. They smell like home. Rows of 20-foot-high shelves run the length of the cavernous structure, and I soak in the sight as I wait by the table nearest the entrance, and the place where I spent the majority of my hours these past 5 years. Only scribes may pass any farther, and I'm a writer. The thought brings a smile to my lips as a woman approaches in a cream tunic and hood, a single rectangle of gold woven into her shoulder, a first year. When she pulls the fabric from her hood, barring long brown hair that brings her gaze to meet mine, a full-on grin, I sign, "Yasina!" "Cadet Sorringale," she signs back. Her bright eyes sparkle, but she smothers her smile. For just this second, I arbor the rituals and customs of the scribes. There would be nothing wrong with pulling my friend into a hug, but she'd be chastised for a loss of composure. After all, how could we know how earnest the scribes are about their work? How dedicated they remain, if they were to crack a smile. "It's really good to see you," I sign, and can't quit grinning. "I knew you'd pass the test." "Only because I studied with you for the past year," she signs back, pressing her lips together so they don't curve upward. Then her face fails. "I was horrified to hear about you being forced into the Rider's Quadrant. Are you alright?" "I'm fine," I assure her, then pause to search my memory for the correct sign for a dragon bond. I'm bonded, and my feelings are complicated, but I think about the way it felt to soar on Terran's back, the gentle nudges from Andarna to keep going when I thought my muscles might give out during Imogen's training sessions, and my relationship with my friends, but I can't deny the truth. I'm happy. Her eyes widen. "Aren't you constantly worried about you're going to..." She glances left and right, but there's no one near enough to see us. Die?" "Sure," I nod, but oddly enough, you know of get you. Oh, sorry. But oddly enough, you kind of get used to that. "If you say so," she looked skeptical. Let's get you taken care of. Are all of these returns? I nod and reach into the pocket of my pants for a small scroll of parchment and hand it to her before signing. And a few requests from Professor De Vera. The writer in charge of our small library sends a list of requests and returns every night, and I fetch them before breakfast, which is probably why my stomach is growling. Burning all the extra calories from my combination of flight, Rhiannon's sparring lessons, and Imogen's torture sessions means I have an all-new capacity for food. Anything else? She asks after putting the scroll in a hidden pocket in her robes. Maybe it's being in the archives, but a stab of homesickness nearly bowls me over. Bleh. Why can't I read today? Any chance you guys have a copy of the Fables of the Baron? Mira was right. I had no business bringing the Book of Fables with me, but it would be nice to spend an evening curled up with a familiar story. Yasina's brows furrow. I'm not familiar with that text. I blink. It's not for academics or anything, just a collection of folklore my dad shared with me. A little on the dark side, honestly, but I love it. I think for a moment. There's no sign for wyvern or venom, so I spell them out. Wyvern, venom, magic, the battles of good and evil, the good stuff. I grin. If anyone understands my love for books, it's Yasina. I've never heard of that one, but I'll look for it while I pull these. Thank you. I'd really appreciate it. Now that I'm going to be the one wielding magic, I could use a few good folk tales of what happens when humans defile the power channeled to them. No doubt they were written as a parable to warn us of the dangers of bonding dragons, but in Navarre's 600-year history of unification, I've never read of a single writer losing their soul to their powers. The dragons kept us from that. Yasina nods and pushes the cart, disappearing into the shelves. It usually takes about 15 minutes to gather the requests that come in from both professors and cadets in my quadrant, but I'm more than content to wait. Scribes come and go, some in groups as they train to become our kingdom's historians, and I find myself staring at every hooded figure, searching for a face I know I can't find, searching for my father. Violet? I turn to the left to see Professor Markham leading a squad of first-year scribes. Hello, Professor. Keeping my face emotionless around him. It's easier because I know he'll expect it. I didn't realize you had library chore duty. He glances toward the spot in the shelves where Yasina disappeared. Are you being helped? Yasina, I cringe. I mean, Cadet Neilwart is most helpful. He says to the squad of five as they arc around me. Cadet Sorengale here was my prized student until the Writers' Quadrant stole her away. His gaze meets mine under his hood. I had hoped she would return, but alas, she had bonded to not one, but 2 dragons. Don't worry, I felt the same way. A girl to his right gasps, then covers her mouth and mutters an apology. Don't worry, I felt the same way. I tell her, perhaps you can explain something to Cadet Nasia over here, who was just gripping that there's not nearly enough fresh air in here. Professor Markham turns his focus to a boy on his left. This group is just starting their rotation in the archives. Nasia turns beet red under his cream hood. It's part of the fire mitigation system, I tell them. Less air, less risk of our history burning to the grounds. And the stuffy hoods, Nasia lifts a brow at me, makes it harder for you to stand out against the tomes, I explain. A symbol that no one and nothing is more important than the documents and books in this very room. My gaze darts around the chamber, and a new pang of homesickness hits me. Exactly, Professor Markham levels a glare at Nausea. Now, if you'll excuse us, Cadet Sorengale, we have work to attend. I'll see you tomorrow in battle brief? Yes, sir. I step back, giving the squad room to pass. You are sad? Andarna asks, her voice soft. Just visiting the archives. No need to worry, I tell her. It's hard to love a second home as much as the first. I swallow. It's easy when the second home is the right one. And that is the writer's quadrant. And that is what the writer's quadrant has become to me. The right home. The longing for the kind of peace and solitude I find only here can't match the adrenaline rush of flight. Yasina reappeared with the cart, laden down with the requested books and bits of mail for the professors of my quadrant. She sighs. I'm so sorry, but I couldn't find that book. I've searched the catalog for Wyvern. I think that's what you said. And there's nothing. I stare for a second. Our archives have either a copy or the original of almost every book in Navarre. Only ultra-rare or forbidden tomes are excluded. When did folklore become either of those? Though, come to think of it, I never came across anything like the fables of the Baron on the shelves while I was studying to be a scribe. Chimera? Yes. Kraken? Sure. But wyvern, or the venin that create them? None. Bizarre. That's all right. Thank you for looking. I sign back. You look different, she signs, then handed the card over. My eyes widen. Not bad different, just different. Your face is leaner, and even your posture. She shakes her head. I've been training. I pause, my hands hanging by my sides while I consider my answer. It's hard, but great too. I'm getting quicker on the mat. The mat? Her brows furrow. For sparring. Right, I forgot that you guys fight each other too. Sympathy fills her eyes. I'm really all right, I promise her, leaving out the times I've caught Orin gripping a dagger in my presence or the way Jack seethes in my direction. How about you? Is it everything you wanted? It's everything and more. So much more. The responsibilities we have not only to record history, but to speed information from the front lines is more than I ever could have imagined. And it's so fulfilling. She presses her lips together again. Good. I'm happy for you. And I mean it. But I worry for you. She sucks in a breath. The uptick in attacks along the border, concern etches lines into her forehead. I know. We hear about them in battle brief. It's always the same striking and faltering wards, ransacking villages high in the mountains, and more dead riders. My heart breaks every time we get a report, and a part of me shuts down with each attack, so I have to analyze. And Dane? She asks as we head to the door. Have you seen him? My smile falters. That's a story for another day. She sighs. I'll try and be here around this time so I can see you. Sounds wonderful. I refrain from pulling her into a hug and walk through the door she opens. By the time I return the cart to the library and make it through the lunch line, our time is almost up, which means I'm busy shoveling food in my mouth as fast as I can while the members of our original squad chat around me. The newbies, 2 first years and 2 second years we took on when the third squad was dissolved, are a table away. They're refusing to sit with anyone with a rebellion relic. So, fuck them. It was the coolest thing ever, Riddick continues. One second he was sparring against the third year with the wicked broadsword skills, and then Sawyer... You could let him tell the story, Rhiannon chides, rolling her eyes. No thank you, Sawyer counters, shaking his head, staring at his fork with a hefty dose of fear. Riddick grins in all his glory, telling the story. And then the sword just twists in Sawyer's hands, curving toward the third year, even though Sawyer was way off the mark. He grimaces in Sawyer's direction. Sorry, man, but you were. If your sword hadn't decided to warp and go straight for the guy's arm, you're a metallurgist. Quinn's eyebrows rise. Really? Holy crap! Sawyer can manipulate metals. I force down a little more turkey and openly stare at him. As far as I know, he's the first of us to display any form of power, let alone a signet. I'm so jealous. Riddick grabs his chest. I want my signet power to manifest. You wouldn't be so excited if it meant you weren't sure if your fork would stab into the roof of your mouth because you can't control it yet. Sora shoves his tray away. Good point. Riddick looks at his own tray. You'll manifest when your dragon is ready to trust you with all that power, Quinn says, then finishes off her water. Just hope your dragon trusts you before about 6 months, and she makes a sound like an explosion and mimics it with her hands. Stop scaring the children, Imogen says. That hasn't happened in, she pauses to think, decades. Hold on 1 second, let me open my drink here. Sorry about that. Stop scaring the children, Imogen says. That hasn't happened in, she pauses to think, decades. When we all stare at her, she rolls her eyes. Look, the relic your dragon transferred onto you at threshing is the conduit to let all that magic into your body. If you don't manifest a signet and let it out after a bunch of months, bad things happen. We all gawk. The magic consumes you, Quinn adds, making the explosion sound again. Relax, it's not like a hard deadline or something. It's just an average, Imogen shrugs. Fuck me. It's always something around here, Riddick mutters. Feeling a little luckier now, Sawyer says, staring at his fork. We'll get you some wooden utensils, I tell Sawyer, and you should probably avoid the armory or sparring with anything. Sawyer scoffs. That's the truth. At least I'll be safe during flight this afternoon. Adding flight classes to our schedule has been essential since threshing. The wings rotate for access to the flight field, and today is one of our lucky days of the week. I feel a tingle in my scalp, and I know if I turn, I'll find Xaden watching me. But I don't give him the satisfaction of looking. He hasn't said so much as a word to me since threshing. That doesn't mean I'm alone. Oh, I'm never alone. There's always an upperclassman somewhere near when I'm walking the halls or heading to the gym at night. And they all have rebellion relics. I like it better when we have it in the morning, Rhiannon says, her face souring. It's way worse after we've eaten breakfast and lunch. Agreed, I manage between mouthfuls. Finish the turkey, Imogen orders. I'll see you tonight. She and Quinn clear their trays, taking them back to the window for scullery. Is she any nicer when she's training you? Rhiannon asks. No, but she's efficient. I finish the turkey as the room begins to clear, and we all make our way toward the scullery window. What's Professor Carr like? I ask Sawyer, then tuck my tray onto the stack. The wielding professor is one of the only ones I haven't met since I haven't manifested a signet. He's terrifying, Sawyer answers. I can't wait for the entire year to start wielding lessons so everyone can enjoy his particular brand of instruction. We head out through commons and the rotunda into the courtyard. all buttoning up our coats. Oh, let me restart my music here. We're all buttoning up our coats. Where was I? November has hit hard, with gusty winds and frosted grass in the morning, and the first snow isn't far behind. I knew it would work, Jack Barlow says ahead of us, dragging someone under his arm and thumping her head affectionately. Isn't that Caroline Ashton? Rhiannon asks, her mouth hanging open as Caroline heads towards the academic wing with Jack. Yeah, Riddick tenses. She bonded Glean this morning. Wasn't he already bonded? Rhiannon watches them until they disappear into the wing. His rider died on our first flight lesson. I focus on the gate ahead that leads to the flight field. So I guess the unbonded still have that shot they're looking for, Rhiannon mutters. Yeah, Sawyer nods. His features tense. They do. You only fell about a dozen times that trip, Taryn remarks as we land on the flight field. I can't tell if that's a compliment or not. I take deep breaths and try to calm my racing heart. Take it as you wish. I mentally roll my eyes and scoot out of the seat as he dips his shoulders so I can slide down his foreleg. The move has become so practiced that I barely even notice that other riders are capable of leaping to the ground or descending the proper way. Besides, you could make it easier, you know. Oh, I know. I'm not the one putting us into spirals with steep banks while Koiy is teaching plain dives. My feet hit the ground of the field and I arc an eyebrow at Taryn. I'm training you for a battle. He's teaching you parlor tricks. He blinks a golden eye at me and looks away. Do you think we can get Andarna to join us next week, even if it's just to fly along? I do all the checks Koiy has taught us, looking for any debris that could have lodged between the long talon toes of Taryn's claws or between the rock-hard scales of his underbelly. I'm not foolish enough to not know that I have something stuck in my flesh, and I wouldn't ask Andarna to join us unless she requested it. She can't keep up the speed, and it would only draw unwanted attention. I never get to see her, I blatantly whine. I'm always stuck with your grumpy ass. I'm always here, Andarna answers, but there's no flicker of gold. She's not likely in the Vale as usual, but at least she's protected there. Or she's most likely in the Vale as usual, but at least she's protected there. This grumpy ass just caught you a dozen times, Silver One. Eventually, you could call me Violet, you know. I take the time to examine every row of his scales. One of the biggest dangers to dragons are the smallest things they can't remove that penetrate between the scales, causing infection. I know, he repeats, and I could call you Violence, like the wing leader. You wouldn't dare. I narrow my eyes as I move forward, checking where his chest begins to rise. And you know how much that ass annoys me. Annoys you? Taryn chuckles above me. The sound like a chuffing cat. Is that what you call it when your heart rate? Don't even start with me. A growl rumbles through Taryn's chest above me and vibrates at my very bones. I pivot, my hands hovering. I pivot. My hands hovering above my sheathed daggers as Dane approaches. It's just Dane. I walk out from between Taryn's forelegs when Dane pauses a dozen feet away. Anger does not suit him. He growls again, and a puff of steam hits the back of my neck. Relax, I say, and glance back over my shoulder at him. My eyebrows shoot up. Taryn's golden eyes are narrowed in a glare on Dane, and his teeth are bared, dripping saliva as another growl rumbles. You are a menace. Stop it, I say. Tell him if he harms you, I'll scorch the ground where he stands. Oh, for fuck's sake, Taryn. I roll my eyes and walk to Dane, whose jaw is locked, but his eyes are wide with apprehension. Tell him, or I'll take it up with Kath. Terran says if you harm me, he'll burn you, I say, as dragons to the left and right launch skyward without their riders, heading back to the Vale. But not Terran. Nope, he's still standing behind me like an overprotective dad. I'm not going to harm you, Dane snaps. Word for word, Silver One. I blow a breath out slowly. Sorry, he actually said if you harm me, he'll scorch the ground where you stand. I turn and look over my shoulder. Better? Terran blinks. Dane keeps his eyes on me, but I see there the swirling anger Terran warned me about. I would rather die than harm you, and you know it. Happy now? I ask Terran. I'm hungry. I think I'll partake in a flock of sheep. He launches with great beats of his wing. I need to talk to you. Dane's voice drops, and he narrows his eyes. Fine. Walk me back. I motion at Rhiannon to go on without me, and she walks ahead with the others, leaving Dane and me to bring up the rear. We fall back at the edge of the field. Why didn't you tell me you can't keep your fucking seat? He shouts at me, grabbing my elbows. Technically, she did. I'm sorry? I yank my arm out of his hold. Terran growls in my mind. I've got this, I shout back at him. All this time, I've been letting Koiy teach you, thinking he must have everything under control. After all, if the rider of the strongest dragon in the quadrant couldn't keep her seat, then surely we'd all know. He rips his hand over his hair. Surely I would know if my best friend fell every fucking day that she flew. Oh, let me reposition myself. I have to put my book down for a second. Alright. It's not a secret. Anger bubbles in my veins. Everyone in our wing knows. I'm sorry if you haven't been keeping tabs on your squad, but trust me, Dane, everyone knows. And I'm not going to stand here while you lecture me like I'm a child. I stalk off, my stride eating up the ground as I follow my wing. You didn't tell me, he says, anger in his voice, giving way to hurt as he catches up, more than matching my pace. There's not a problem, I shake my head. Terran can keep me buckled in magically if he needs to. I'm the one asking him to lose the restraints, and I'd think twice before you question him. He's more of a chart first, ask questions later type. It's a huge problem, because he can't channel his full powers, I ask as we make it out of the field, heading towards the step that descend next to the gauntlet. I know that. Why do you think I'm up there asking him to loosen up? Frustration is a living, breathing thing inside me, eating up all rational thought. You've been flying for a month, and you're still falling. His voice follows me down the staircase. So is half the wing, Dane. Not a dozen times they aren't, he shoots back. He's on my heels as I pick up my pace towards the path that will lead back to the Citadel, the gravel crunching beneath my boots. I just want to help you, Vi. How can I help? I sigh at the plaintive tone in his voice. I keep forgetting that this is my best friend, and he's having to watch me risk my life every day. I don't know how I'd feel if our roles were reversed, probably just as concerned. So I try to lighten the mood and say, you should have seen me a month ago when it was 3 dozen times. 3 dozen? His voice rises on the last word. I halt at the mouth of the tunnel and offer a smile. It sounded worse than it sounds worse than it is, Dane, I promise. Will you at least tell me what part of flight you have trouble with? At least let me help you. You want a list of my flaws? I rolled my eyes. My thighs are too weak, and I'm building muscle. My hands can't grip the pommel, but they're getting stronger. It took weeks for my biceps to heal, and I'm training that one too. But you don't have to worry about me, Dane. Imogen is training me. Because Ryerson asked her to? He guesses, folding his arms across his chest. Probably. Why does it matter? Because he doesn't have your best interest at heart. He shakes his head, looking more like a stranger than I've ever seen him before. First, it was bending the rules to make it up the gauntlet. And yes, Amber lit into me for an hour about how you acted dishonorably. Dishonorably? Fuck this. And you just took her word for it without asking me what happened? She's a wing leader, Vi. I'm not about to question her integrity. I proved myself with the Codex, and Ryerson accepted it. He's a wing leader too. Fine, you made it up. Don't get me wrong. I couldn't stand myself if something happened to you, whether you were handling the trial the right or wrong way. And then I thought you'd be fine if you survived threshing. But even bonded to the strongest of them. He shakes his head. Go ahead, say it. My hands curl into fists, my nails biting into my palms. I'm terrified you're not going to make it to graduation, Vi. His shoulders slump. You know exactly how I feel about you, whether or not I can do anything about it. And I'm terrified. That's the last line that does me in. Laughter bubbles up through my throat and escapes. His eyes widen. This place cuts away the bullshit and the niceties, revealing whoever you are at your core. I repeat his words from this summer. Isn't that what you said to me? Is this who you really are at your core? Someone so enamored with rules that he doesn't know when to bend or break them for someone he cares about? Someone so focused on the least I'm capable of doing, he can't believe I can do so much more? The warmth drains from his brown eyes. Let's get one thing straight, Dane. I take a step closer, but the distance between us only widens. The reason we'll never be anything more than friends isn't because of your rules. It's because you have no faith in me. Even now, when I've survived against all odds and bonded not just one dragon, but two, you still think I won't make it. So forgive me, but you're about to be some of the, so forgive me, but you're about to be some of the bullshit that this place cuts away from me. I move to the side and march past him through the tunnel, forcing air through my lungs. Other than the last year, when he entered the Rider's Quadrant, I can't remember a time without Dane in my life. But I can't take his constant pessimism about my future anymore. Sunlight overpowers me for a second as I walk into the courtyard. Classes are out for the afternoon, and I see Zayden and Garrick leaned up against a wall of the academic building like gods surveying their domain. Zayden arches a dark eyebrow as I pass by. I flip him the middle finger. I'm not taking his shit today, either. Everything all right? Rhiannon asks as I catch up to her and the guys. Dane is an ass. Make it stop! Make it stop! Someone screams, rushing down the steps of the rotunda and holding his head. It's a first year in third wing, who sits 2 rows beneath me in battle brief and perpetually drops his quill. For God's sake, make it stop! He shrieks, stumbling into the courtyard. My hands hover over my blades. A shadow moves to my left, and a glance tells me Zayden has moved, casually putting himself just ahead of me. The crowd hollows, forming a circle around the first year as he screams, clutching his head. Jeremiah! Someone shouts, coming forward. You! Jeremiah spins, pointing his finger at the third year. You think I've lost it! His head tilts, and his eyes flare. How does he know? He shouldn't know. His tone shifts. The words aren't his own. Chills race down my spine, dragging my stomach to the ground. And you! He spins again pointing at a second year in First Wing. What the hell is wrong with him? Why is he screaming? He turns again, focused on Dane. Is Violet going to hate me forever? Why can't she see that I just want to keep her alive? How is he? He's reading my thoughts. The impression is uncanny, embarrassing, and terrifying. Odds, I whisper, my heart thundering so loud I can hear the pounding blood in my ears. Forget the embarrassment. Who cares if people know Dane is thinking about me? Jeremiah's signet power is manifesting. He can read minds. An intrinsic. I mispronounce that word every time I read it. An intrinsic. His power is a death sentence. Riddick stumbles backwards on my left, shoved aside, and I don't need to look to know whose muscled arm now brushed my shoulder. The scent of mint somehow steadied my heartbeat. Jeremiah unsheaths his short sword. Make it stop! Can't any of you see? The thoughts won't stop! His panic is palpable, clogging my own throat. Do something! I beg Xaden, glancing up at him. His unwavering lethal focus is on Jeremiah, but his body tenses at my plea, poised, ready to strike. Start mentally reciting whatever bookish shit you've learned. I'm sorry, I hiss up at him. If you value your secrets, clear your thoughts now, Xaden orders. Oh shit. Nothing comes to mind, and we're clearly in imminent danger. Many Navarian defense posts exist beyond the safety of our wards. Such posts are considered to be in a zone of imminent danger and should only be staffed by military personnel and never the civilians who usually accompany them. And you! Jeremiah turns, his gaze locking on Garrick. Damn it all to hell! He'll know about... The shadows around Jeremiah's feet shake up, his legs, in a heartbeat, winding around his chest until they cover his mouth in bands of black. I swallow the boulder in my throat. A professor pushes through the crowd, his stalk of white hair bouncing with every step of his large frame. He's an intrinsic! Someone shouts at this, and that seems to be all that's necessary. The professor grips Jeremiah's head with both hands, and a crack echoes off the walls of the silent courtyard. Xaden's shadows melt away, and Jeremiah falls to the ground, his head at an unnatural, macabre angle. His neck is broken. The professor bends down and lifts Jeremiah's body with surprising strength, carrying him into the rotunda. Xaden inhales sharply beside me and then walks away with Garrick, headed towards the academic wing. Nice to see you too. Maybe I don't want a signet power after all, Riddick murmurs. That death is merciful compared to what will happen if you don't manifest one, Dane says, and I swear I start to feel my relics burn across my back, even though my dragons haven't started channeling. And that, Sawyer says from Rhiannon's side, was Professor Carr. You always have to check your sources. You always have to check your sources, Dad tells me, ruffling my hair, as he stands beside me at the table in the archives. Remember that first-hand accounts are always more accurate, but you have to look deeper, Violet. You have to see who is telling the story. But what if I want to be a writer? I ask with the voice of a much younger version of me, like Brennan and Mom. Wake! A familiar, consuming voice rumbles through the archives. A voice that doesn't belong here. You're not like them, Violet. That's not your path. Dad offers me an apologetic smile. The usual kind that says he sympathizes, but there's nothing he can do. The kind he gives me when Mom makes a choice he doesn't agree with, and it's for the best. Your mother has never understood that while writers may be the weapons of our kingdom, it's the scribes who have all the real power in this world. Wake before you die! The bookshelves in the archives tremble, and my heart jolts. Now! My eyes fly open, and I gasp as the dream disintegrates. I'm not in the archives. I'm in my room in the writer's. Move! Taryn bellows. Fuck, she's awake! Moonlight reflects off a sword slicing through the air above me. Oh, shit! I roll toward the opposite side of my bed, and not fast enough. And the blade slams into the side of my back with a force even my thick winter blankets can't diffuse. Adrenaline camouflages the pain as the sword rebounds, unable to split the dragon scales. My knees slam into the hardwood floor, and I thrust my hands beneath my pillows, drawing back 2 daggers as I untangle from the covers and gain my feet. How the hell did they get my door unlocked? Blowing my unbound hair out of my face, I meet the wide, shocked eyes of an unbonded first year, and he's not the only one. There are 7 cadets in my room. 4 are unbonded, 4 are unbonded men, 3 are unbonded women. I gasp with recognition. Make that 2 as she runs for the door and slams it on the way out. She opened the door. There's no other explanation. The rest are all armed, all determined to kill me, all standing between my unlocked door and me. My hands curl around the hilts of my daggers, and my heart rate skyrockets. Guess it won't do me much good to ask you to leave nicely. I'm going to have to fight my way out of here. Get away from the wall. Don't let them trap you. Good point, but there's not exactly a lot of places to go in this tiny room. Damn it. I told you her armor is impenetrable. Orin hisses from the other side of the room, blocking my exit. Fucking asshole. I should have killed you during threshing, I admit. My door is closed, but surely someone will hear if I scream. A woman lunges for me, scrambling across my bed, and I dodge, sliding along the icy pane of the window. The window? It's too high. You'll fall to the ravine, and I can't get there fast enough. No window. Got it. Another woman throws her knife, rending the fabric of my nightgown sleeve as it lodges into the armoire. But she missed any flesh. I spin, leaving the sleeve behind as it rips away, and flick my dagger as I round the end of my bed. It lands in her shoulder, my favorite target, and she goes down with a cry, clutching her wound. The rest of my weapons are stored near the door. Shit. No more throwing things. Keep a hold of that weapon. For someone who can't help, Taryn has no problem dishing out opinions. You have to go for her throat, Orin shouts. I'll do it myself. I move my blade to my right hand and fend off one attack from the left, slicing her down her forearm, and then another to the right, stabbing into a man's thigh. I kick out with my heel and catch another in the gut as he attacks, sending him careening back onto my bed, his sword tumbling after him. But now, I'm cornered between my desk and the armoire. There are too many of them, and they all rush at the same damn time. My dagger is kicked out of my hand with appealing ease, and my heart seizes as Orin grips my throat, yanking me toward him. I sweep out for his knees, but my bare feet make no impact as he lifts me off the ground, cutting off my air supply as I kick for purchase. No. I dig my hands into his arms, my fingernails puncturing his skin as I claw, drawing blood. He might bear my scars after this, but his grip doesn't ease as he crushes my throat. Air. There's no air. He's almost there, Taryn promises, panic lacing his tone. He who? I can't breathe, can't think. Finish her, one of the men yells. He'll only respect us if we finish her. They're after Taryn. Taryn's roar of rage fills my head as Orin lowers my body, flipping me around as he curls one arm so my back is against his chest. At least my feet are on the ground, but the edge of my vision goes dark. My lungs fighting for oxygen that isn't there. The greedy eyes of a bleeding first year stare back into mine. Do it, she demands. Your dragon is mine, Orin hisses in my ear, and his hands falls away, replaced by a blade. Air rushes into my lungs as a cold metal caresses my throat, the oxygen flooding my blood and clearing my head enough to realize this is it. I am going to die. From one heartbeat to what will probably be my last, an overwhelming sorrow seizes my chest, and I can't help but wonder if I would have made it. Would I have been strong enough to graduate? Would I have become worthy of Taryn and Andarna? Would I have finally made my mother proud? The knife tip touches my skin. My bedroom door flies open, the wood splintering as it slams against the stone wall, but I don't have a chance to turn to see who's standing there before a shriek pierces my vision. Mine! Andarna screams, skin prickling energy zings down my spine, then rushes to my fingertips and toes, and the next breath I take is in total complete silence. Go! Andarna demands. I blink and realize the first year in front of me doesn't. She isn't breathing, isn't moving. No one is. Everyone in this room is frozen in place, except me. Alright, that is the end of chapter 18. I know we're leaving on a little bit of a cliffhanger. But with that, we are ending today's reading, and we'll be back tomorrow with chapters 19 through 24. Thank you for anybody who did show up today. Tomorrow we'll come back with chapters 19 through 24, and if I remember correctly, I know we did leave on a little bit of a cliffhanger right now, but the next 6 chapters, it gets better. I promise. So I hope you guys have a wonderful night, and I'll see you tomorrow.